You've got to be kidding me. Having a baby with the guy you broke up with. Is it because you can't get over me? Are you hoping that by having a child, you'll somehow keep me in your life? That's absurd. Looking back, breaking up was absolutely the right decision. If I'd stayed with that daydreamer, I wouldn't have the happiness I have now. Today, I want to reflect on my unforgettable past and the drama of its reversal. My name is Amy. I'm a 53-year-old housewife who finds joy in leisurely housework while watching the morning news. When I was 38, I was living peacefully with my husband, Keith. But around that time, a subtle unease began to settle in our home. Keith started responding to me with indifference, almost dismissively. When I tried to continue a conversation, he would cut me off, saying he was too busy. It felt like I was being ignored and treated harshly. He hadn't always been like this. He used to be a chatterbox, always trying to make me laugh with his jokes. This sudden change was so abrupt that I wondered if I had done something wrong, but nothing came to mind. One day, I noticed a faint lipstick mark on the back of a shirt Keith had put in the laundry. He had come home late that day, claiming he had to work overtime. I couldn't imagine anyone at his all-male workplace leaning against him with lipstick on. Could it be a woman? Naturally, I suspected infidelity, but a single lipstick stain was hard to prove. He could easily make up an excuse like bumping into someone. I decided I needed more evidence and started paying closer attention to Keith's behavior. Ironically, my increased vigilance led to a mountain of proof. For instance, Keith would always get up to use the bathroom around 2 a.m. when I was asleep. I had never doubted him before, but it seemed he was making calls to a woman during those bathroom visits. There were also traces of what looked like lipstick on his handkerchief and some suspicious stains on his suits. The clincher was when I borrowed Keith's car after a long time and found a tinted lip balm. If Keith had been using tinted lip balm, that would be one thing, but this seemed like irrefutable evidence. It was our 10th wedding anniversary. The frustration of having my husband stolen by another woman, the loneliness of not wanting to be alone, and the rekindled love I felt for Keith left me wondering, is it really impossible to make amends? Is there no way to revive something once it's cooled off? When I found out about the pregnancy, I thought, is this a gift from God? We didn't have any children, and perhaps the monotony of our relationship contributed to Keith's infidelity. Maybe this pregnancy could change things. With that hope in my heart, I clung to the possibility that it might somehow fix everything. When I told my husband about my pregnancy, his response was shocking. "Give me a break," he said dismissively. "That's just troublesome. Let's break up." I couldn't believe my ears. Looking back, I suppose I was naive to think he might come back to me. It's rare for a man who's been unfaithful to return. Life doesn't always work out like a TV show or a movie. Back then, I believed in our love and thought that surely we could reconcile. "How could you say something like that?" I cried. "It's your baby." His response was cold. "Even a child would be better off without a father like me. You've realized that, haven't you?" Seeing him smirk, my heart sank. I had been pretending not to know about his affair, hoping that once the baby arrived, things would go back to normal. But now it felt like I'd been pushed off a cliff. I thought that if the affair came to light, the tension between us would drive him away for good. But that was a miscalculation. I had hoped he would catch me in the act, but he never said a word. I was exhausted from waiting. I had been waiting for him to say, "You can't be serious. Let's divorce." But instead, he simply added, "Seriously, don't make this harder for me." "Are you joking?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I wouldn't lie about something this serious." He smirked again and said, "I have a cute 24-year-old girlfriend now. I don't need a 38-year-old who's going to gain weight from pregnancy." He then added with a cruel laugh, "If your figure goes pear-shaped, you're out." I couldn't muster a single laugh. "Just take this," he said, handing me the divorce papers. "I'll pay alimony or whatever. Just sign quickly." For 3 days, I cried continuously, unable to stop. Eventually, when he stopped coming home altogether, I signed the divorce papers. 5 years have passed since then. The fear of growing older and being alone was daunting. But fortunately, I found solace in remarrying my old friend Troy, who had also been through a divorce. Together, we've been living modestly but happily with our child. Troy's ex-wife had also cheated on him, and like me, he was a survivor of a painful divorce. Our shared experiences have made living together comfortable and understanding. Every year on our anniversary, Hura reserves a table at a fancy restaurant and gives me thoughtful gifts for my birthday. I feel truly cherished. With these thoughts in mind, we celebrated our wedding anniversary again this year at our usual upscale restaurant. As we were enjoying our meal, I heard a voice that made my stomach churn. "Wow, it's Amy," said my ex-husband, who had just emerged from the restroom. I couldn't hide my disgust. The unexpected encounter with my ex-husband was a tragedy. "What are you doing here?" I asked, barely masking my irritation. "Just a business dinner," he replied with a bored look. "Not like you." He glanced over at me, then at our child, and sneered. "You had that kid with the guy you broke up with. That's disgusting." He reached out and grabbed our child's hand, scrutinizing him with a cruel smirk. "Seriously, you've got to be kidding. Having a kid with the guy you left. Is this your way of clinging to me? Did you think having a child would somehow make it harder for you to cut ties with me?" His grin widened as he spun the child around, clearly enjoying the distress he was causing. Our child's face contorted in fear and he began to cry. "Papa, Mama, help. I'm being taken by a stranger." "Stay there," my ex said coldly. "I'm your papa. Your mom is right there. You're just as stupid as she is." The sight of him, relishing in the pain he was causing, was a painful reminder of the past I thought I had moved beyond. Just as he finished speaking, a man over 6 feet tall appeared behind him and grabbed my ex's arm firmly. "That child is mine," the tall man said, his voice steady and authoritative. I couldn't help but chuckle at my ex's surprised expression. "Oh, this guy's Amy's new husband," my ex remarked, though I didn't respond to his question. "I don't know what you were talking about," the tall man said, "but you can't make a child crying and get away with it." He glared at my ex, and a tattoo peeked out from under his sleeve. My ex's face went pale at the sight of it. "Hey, Amy, stop your husband," my ex stammered. "That woman is not my wife," the tall man replied. My ex looked stunned, glancing back and forth between me, the tall man, and the still crying child. "Wait, then who's this kid?" he asked. Before my ex could react, the tall man had secured his arms behind his back. "This man is acting suspiciously," my ex shouted. "Someone call a staff member. There's a man here harming my kid." The commotion in the restaurant drew attention. I thought, what a way to ruin an anniversary, but I couldn't help but smirk. It seemed the day had turned out better than expected, if only by accident. "Wait, staff, over here," I called out. I saw this man forcibly grabbing the child's arm. My ex's mouth fell open. "Amy, what's going on? I really don't understand." I told him I'm not his wife. That child isn't mine and certainly not yours. "But he was right behind you," my ex protested. "You were blocking the restroom entrance. The child couldn't get in because of you. He was just following his dad." "What?" My ex was flustered. "You probably enjoy making fun of people, but you really need to stop jumping to conclusions." I added, "Perhaps you should be more aware of your surroundings." "What? Shut up. I don't need to hear that from you," my ex snapped. "Of course, my valuable words probably wouldn't reach someone as suspicious as you." "I told you I'm not suspicious," the tall man replied. "Oh, really?" A man who approaches a random child, grabs their arm, and then starts speaking in baby talk, saying, "I'm your daddy," isn't suspicious at all? You've got to be kidding me. "That's because you had the nerve to say to the woman in front of you, 'Your mom is over there,'" I said with a smirk. "Do you still think we're a couple?" My ex-husband Keith turned bright red and yelled, "Stop messing with me." As Keith's shouts grew louder, the tall man tightened his grip on him. "Ouch! Hey, mister, let me go. I'm innocent." "Innocent?" I replied. "You undeniably made our son cry." "That's a misunderstanding," Keith protested. Before he could continue, I cut him off. "The fact is, you misunderstood and laid your hands on someone else's child." Keith glared at me and said, You, I said in a deliberately cute voice, which seemed to irritate him even more. "I've been glared at by a suspicious person. Scary." Keith tried to wriggle free from the tall man's grip, but to no avail. "You're so deluded if you think we're still a couple. Or maybe you just can't forget about me," I taunted, repeating the accusation Keith had made earlier. As expected, Keith's rage grew. Sensing the danger, the tall man threw him to the ground and straddled his back. "You really thought you could escape from me?" While the man's intimidation was light, the tattoo peeking from under his sleeve added an air of genuine menace. Keith must have realized this could be the end for him. "Hey, Amy, it was a misunderstanding," Keith cried out. "A misunderstanding?" I replied. Pulling on a stranger's child's arm is not a misunderstanding at all. Keith's pleading, half-crying voice echoed as he attempted to justify himself. I thought it was my kid. It was clear that Keith was desperate, but his excuses only deepened the gravity of the situation. I burst into laughter, claiming he's your kid when you haven't even acknowledged him or paid any child support. Really? Oh, Keith replied, looking confused. Did we ever talk about recognition or child support after our divorce? Keith, I wouldn't have expected you to acknowledge him even if you had been contacted, I said, and that's why you never reached out to me, right? Don't be ridiculous. Why would I do that when I'm raising a child on my own? I'd have hunted you down for support if it were necessary. Ah, but here's the thing, I continued. The pregnancy test turned out to be a false positive. When I went to the OB/GYN, they told me I wasn't pregnant, which solidified my decision to sign the divorce papers. During those 3 days while we were discussing divorce and Keith wasn't coming home, it's true, I spent a lot of time crying. But I knew I couldn't finalize the divorce without understanding the full situation, especially with the potential for a child involved. So, I went to the OB/GYN first. Even though we weren't officially divorced yet, I wanted to sort out issues like alimony, child support, and future living expenses. I was willing to endure hardships if it would benefit my child. However, the OB/GYN found no signs of pregnancy, but instead discovered a tumor in my ovaries. While recovering from surgery for the tumor, I shared a hospital room with the mother of my current husband. I had known both his parents since childhood, as my current husband and I were old friends. When he came to visit his mom, we reunited and grew close again. At that time, I thought of my pregnancy scare as a divine sign meant to ensure things would work out with my current husband. However, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It led me to realize that breaking up with my ex-husband was indeed the right decision. It also gave me the chance to find someone who genuinely cares for me and led to the early detection of an illness. Even though I had one of my ovaries removed last year, I am grateful for how things turned out. I gave birth to a child with my current husband, and despite the hardships I've faced, everything has turned out to be a series of blessings for me. Seeing my ex-husband's reaction upon learning all this, he paled and muttered, "No way, I was dumped by her." It was hard not to laugh at his stunned realization. Obviously, a young woman wouldn't want to be with an aging man like him. At that moment, a police officer arrived, apparently summoned by someone from the restaurant. My ex-husband received a stern warning from an officer and avoided further trouble by sincerely apologizing to the child's family once the misunderstanding was cleared. The reprimand from the police seemed to have hit him hard. He even came to apologize to me personally. Although he didn't know where I lived, he managed to find my parents' home and express his regrets to my mother. "I made a terrible mistake," he admitted. "I was wrong." Seeing him like this, aging, rejected, and alone seemed to have broken his spirit. He appeared to be struggling with the loneliness of having no one to turn to. But despite his apology, I really couldn't care less. I continued to ignore him. If we hadn't run into each other that day, I would have long forgotten about him. When we crossed paths, my current husband had noticed I'd been away from our table for a while and came to check on me in the restroom. He decided to stay in the shadows, thinking this might be my chance to confront my ex. I would have stepped in if anything escalated, but the man restraining my ex was incredibly strong. Apparently, he was a returnee and had been a football team captain in America, which explained his impressive strength. I wouldn't have stood a chance. I was genuinely scared, thinking he was some kind of tough guy. Hearing this made me laugh along with him. I admit, back when we got divorced, I wasn't strong. Despite everything, I simply followed through with the divorce as he requested, receiving a modest alimony payment from him and his lover. Life isn't a fairy tale, so expecting a massive alimony settlement was unrealistic. I didn't have the strength to resist back then. But I finally found my voice and stood my ground with my ex-husband, which helped me become truly strong. Now, I can face my husband and my child without any guilt. Coincidentally, the day of my marriage anniversary this year also marked a new beginning for me. My husband has since become a freelance architect and doubled his income, allowing me to quit my part-time job and fully embrace my role as a stay-at-home mom. Our slightly rebellious daughter might grumble when I ask her to do things, but she quietly helps out when I don't ask. Only my husband and I know about her loving nature. Though I had a late-life pregnancy and only have one daughter, our family, along with our 2 dogs, makes for a lively and joyful household. Even with just one ovary, I managed to get pregnant and give birth at an advanced age with my current husband. I can't help but think there's some kind of fate at play here. The dream of marrying someone special, which I cherished since childhood, came true in an unexpected way through remarriage. These are just some dreamy thoughts I entertain from time to time, and with that, I cherish the everyday happiness that is anything but ordinary.
You're a burden now. Those words hit harder than any physical blow could have. I watched my husband of 8 years pack his designer suitcase while I stood frozen in our bedroom doorway, mascara running down my cheeks. I'm Gianna, and until yesterday, I was living what I thought was the perfect life. Executive position at a leading tech firm, beautiful home in Seattle, and a marriage I believed was unshakable. Funny how quickly perfect can crumble. "Holden, please," I whispered, hating the tremor in my voice. "We can figure this out. The layoff was unexpected, but I have savings, connections. I'll find something new." He barely glanced at me as he folded his expensive shirts. "You said that 2 months ago, Gianna. 2 months of watching you mope around the house, sending out resumes like they're message bottles lost at sea." He zipped the suitcase with finality. "I didn't sign up for this." "Didn't sign up for what? Supporting your wife through a rough patch?" My voice gained strength as anger started to replace shock. "What happened to for better or worse? That was before the market crashed and your entire division got axed." Holden straightened his tie in the mirror, ever the polished investment banker. "I need a partner, not dead weight." My phone buzzed. A text from Riley. "Girl, you okay? Haven't heard from you all day." I ignored it, focusing on the man I thought I knew. 8 years together, and this is how you handle our first real challenge? Challenge? He laughed, the sound cold and unfamiliar. "You want to talk about challenges? Try explaining to my colleagues why my wife's been unemployed for months. Try maintaining our lifestyle on one income." "Wha, our lifestyle?" I gestured around our bedroom, at the art pieces he'd insisted on buying. "You mean your lifestyle? The one I helped build when I was making 6 figures? And now you're making 0. He grabbed his suitcase. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce proceedings." The word divorce echoed in my head like a gunshot. "Where are you going?" "The Four Seasons downtown. Don't try to contact me." He brushed past me, his expensive cologne, a gift I'd bought him last Christmas, making me nauseous. I followed him downstairs, watching as he collected his keys and wallet from the entry table. "So that's it? 8 years thrown away because I hit a rough patch?" He paused at the door, finally meeting my eyes. "No, Gianna. 8 years thrown away because you proved you're not who I thought you were. Success suited you. This." He waved his hand dismissively at me. "This version of you? She's pathetic." The door closed behind him with a soft click that felt like thunder. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Naomi. "Hey G, missed you at coffee this morning. Everything okay?" I sank onto my leather couch, staring at the Seattle skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The same view I'd celebrated with champagne when I landed my executive role 3 years ago. Holden had been so proud then, showing me off at corporate events like a prize thoroughbred. The buzzing continued. Riley again. "Seriously worried. Call me ASAP." My fingers trembled as I typed, "Holden left. He's filing for divorce." The response was immediate. "What? I'm coming over. Don't move." 20 minutes later, Riley burst through my door using her emergency key. Her dark curls were wild, like she'd run all the way from her apartment. "Tell me everything," she demanded, pulling me into a fierce hug. As I recounted the morning's events, Riley's expression darkened. "That materialistic bastard," she spat. "I never liked him. Always thought he saw you more as an asset than a wife." "I should have seen it coming," I admitted, wiping fresh tears. The way he'd tense up whenever I mentioned job interviews, how he stopped inviting me to his work functions. "Stop that right now." Riley gripped my shoulders. "This is not your fault. He showed his true colors the moment things got tough. You deserve better." My phone lit up with Naomi's response to my group text. "Just got out of a meeting. Coming over with wine and pizza. We're not letting you go through this alone. Looking at these messages of support, something shifted inside me. The devastation began to harden into something else. Determination, maybe. Or rage. You know what the worst part is? I told Riley, my voice steadier now. He thinks this is my rock bottom, that losing him is the final nail in my coffin. Riley's eyes gleamed. But it's not, is it? No. I stood up, walking to the window where Seattle's tech district sparkled in the distance. It's my starting line. 3 empty wine bottles lined my coffee table, surrounded by pizza crusts and crumpled napkins. Naomi paced the living room, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors, while Riley sprawled on the couch beside me. What if, Naomi said, stopping mid-stride, we turned this whole thing on its head? I lifted my head from the throw pillow. What do you mean? Remember that startup idea you pitched to the board last year? The one they shot down because it was too risky? The AI-driven personal finance platform? I sat up straighter. What about it? Riley's eyes widened. Oh my God, yes. You were so passionate about that project. What did you call it? Wealthwise, I said softly, memories flooding back. A platform that would make financial planning accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy elite. Exactly! Naomi grabbed her laptop from her bag. The market needs something like this now more than ever. With the recession hitting, people are desperate for affordable financial guidance. But starting a company takes money, I protested. In case you forgot, I'm unemployed. Actually... Riley sat up, looking slightly guilty. Remember Samson from grad school? He's been doing really well with his venture capital firm. We've kept in touch, and he always said if I ever heard of a promising startup. You want me to pitch to Samson? My voice cracked. I haven't even updated my business plan. Then let's update it. Naomi opened her laptop. Right now, you've got me for strategy, Riley for networking, and your brilliant tech mind. What else do we need? I stood up and walked to my home office, returning with a thick folder. This is everything from the original proposal, market research, user interface designs, preliminary code architecture. Holy shit, Riley breathed, flipping through the pages. You really did think of everything. Of course she did. She's Gianna. Naomi started typing furiously. And now we have an even better angle, targeting people affected by the economic downturn. People like me, I finished. People who thought they were financially secure until everything fell apart. Exactly. Riley pulled out her phone. I'm texting Samson right now. He owes me a favor anyway. My hands started shaking. This is crazy. Starting a company in the middle of a divorce? No, Naomi said firmly. This is perfect timing. You know why? Because you have nothing to lose and everything to prove. The next morning, nursing a slight hangover, I met Samson at his favorite coffee shop downtown. He hadn't changed much since grad school, still sporting his signature bow tie and warm smile. Gianna, he greeted me with a hug. Riley filled me in on everything, both the business idea and the personal situation. I flushed. I'm not looking for pity investments. Good, because I don't make those. He sat down, pulling out a tablet. Show me what you've got. For the next hour, I walked him through the Wealthwise concept. My hands steadied as I explained the technical architecture, the market opportunity, the revenue model. It felt good, familiar, like slipping into my old confident skin. The thing is, I concluded, people shouldn't need a 6-figure salary to access decent financial advice. Technology can bridge that gap. Samson leaned back, studying me. You know what I like most about this pitch? What? You're not just selling a product, you're selling redemption, your own and your future users. That's powerful. My throat tightened. Does that mean? It means I'm in, but not just with money. He pulled out a business card. I want to be your strategic partner, help you avoid the pitfalls most startups face. Seriously? On one condition. His expression turned serious. You go all in, no half measures. This becomes your life for the next year at least. Can you do that? I thought about my empty house, About Holden's sneering face, about all the hours I'd spent doubting myself. Yes, I can do that. Then let's talk numbers. He pulled out a contract. I had my team draw this up after Riley's text. Take it home, review it with a lawyer, but know I'm ready when you are. Later that evening, I stood in my home office, staring at the contract on my desk. My phone buzzed with a text from Holden. Lawyer will contact you tomorrow. Hope you're being reasonable about all this. I looked at the contract again, then at my reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same one who'd watched her husband walk out. She was someone new, someone stronger. I picked up my phone and texted Samson. I'm in. Let's change the world. Then I texted Riley and Naomi. Meeting tomorrow morning. We're launching a company. For the first time in months, I smiled at my reflection. Holden wanted reasonable? He was about to learn that reasonable wasn't in my vocabulary anymore. 6 months, I announced to our small team, standing in our newly leased office space. That's our timeline for the beta launch. 6 months? Nina, our recently hired marketing director, nearly choked on her coffee. That's ambitious for a fintech platform. Ambitious is what we do here. Naomi tapped her tablet, projecting our timeline onto the wall. We've already got the basic architecture in place, and our first round of funding is secured. The office buzzed with energy despite being half-furnished. Boxes of computers and equipment lined the walls, waiting to be unpacked. Through the windows, Seattle's tech district loomed, reminding me of everything I had to prove. Speaking of funding, Samson walked in, bow tie slightly askew. We've got our first potential problem. Melanie just joined CompFin as their head of product development. My stomach dropped. Melanie, my former colleague, who'd always resented playing second fiddle to me at our old company. Let me guess. They're suddenly developing something similar? Got it in one. Samson handed me his phone, showing CompFin's press release. They're announcing a revolutionary financial planning platform next quarter. That's 3 months before our launch date, Riley noted, frowning at the screen. They're trying to beat us to market, I said, pacing the room. Melanie knows enough about our old proposal to fast-track a competing product. Nina raised her hand. Quick question, who's Melanie? Someone who's about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating us, Naomi replied, already typing furiously on her laptop. I'm looking at their job postings. They're desperately hiring developers. Which means they're starting from scratch, I realized, a plan forming. They might announce in 3 months, but they won't have a working product. Unless they cut corners, Samson added. Exactly. I grabbed a marker and approached the whiteboard. So we pivot. Instead of launching the full platform in 6 months, we release a stripped-down version in 10 weeks. 10 weeks? The entire room erupted in protests. I held up my hand. Listen, we focus on one core feature, the automated financial advisory algorithm. Make it perfect, make it beautiful, make it impossible to replicate quickly. That could work, Naomi said slowly. We'd need to pull some all-nighters, but we'd beat them to market, Nina finished, excitement building in her voice. And if we nail that first feature, we control the narrative. The next 8 weeks became a blur of coffee-fueled coding sessions and heated strategy meetings. Our small office transformed into a war room, walls covered in user flow diagrams and testing schedules. One evening, as I was reviewing code, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Holden at a restaurant, sitting close to a blonde woman. Below it, a message. Thought you should know what your ex is up to. M. My hands shook as I showed the photo to Riley, who was working late with me. Melanie's playing mind games, she said, squeezing my shoulder. She wants to throw you off your game before the launch. Well, it's not going to work. I turned back to my computer, channeling my anger into productivity. How's the user interface coming along? 2 days before our surprise launch, disaster struck. Our main server crashed during final testing, taking 3 weeks of work with it. This isn't an accident, Naomi declared, examining the logs. Someone tried to breach our firewall last night. The team gathered in the conference room, faces tired but determined. Options? I asked, looking around the table. We could postpone, Nina suggested carefully. No. I stood up, addressing the room. That's exactly what they want. We've got 48 hours. Who's with me? What followed was the most intense coding marathon of my life. The office became a temporary home, with air mattresses in corners and empty energy drink cans everywhere. Every team member stepped up, going far beyond their job descriptions. At 3 a.m. on launch day, we finished. The platform was ready, streamlined, secure, and beautiful in its simplicity. Look at this, Riley called out, showing us CompFin's latest press release. They were postponing their announcement, citing technical refinements. They blinked, Samson said, grinning. As the sun rose over Seattle, we gathered around my computer. With one click, Wealthwise would go live. I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The betrayal, the doubt, the countless sleepless nights. Ready? I asked my team, my new family. They nodded, tired but proud. I pressed enter, and our platform went live. Within hours, user signups started rolling in. By evening, we were trending on tech Twitter. To the beginning, Naomi raised her coffee cup in a toast. No, I corrected her, watching our user count climb. To revenge served scalding hot. The office erupted in laughter and cheers, while my phone buzzed with another text from Melanie. I deleted it without reading it. She'd learned soon enough that she'd picked the wrong woman to mess with. 1 million users in 3 months. Nina burst into my office, waving her tablet. We've hit the milestone a full quarter ahead of projections. I was about to celebrate when Samson rushed in, his usual composed demeanor rattled. Turn on CNBC, now. The wall-mounted TV flickered to life, showing Melanie sitting in a studio, perfectly poised in a designer suit. The caption read, CompFin executive alleges corporate espionage. Serious concerns about Wealthwise's meteoric rise, Melanie was saying. Their platform bears striking similarities to proprietary technology developed at our company. She's lying through her teeth, Naomi snarled, appearing in my doorway. I held up my hand for silence, listening as Melanie continued. We're preparing legal action to protect our intellectual property. My phone exploded with notifications. Our stock price was already dropping. Get me everything we have on the original Wealthwise proposal, I told Naomi. Every email, every timestamp, every signature. Already on it. She disappeared down the hall. Riley burst in next. Social media is blowing up. We need to respond. No, Samson interjected. Any response right now looks defensive. We need something bigger. I stood up, my mind racing. Nina, call that reporter from Tech Weekly who's been begging for an exclusive. Tell her she's got her story, but we do it live today. Live? Are you sure? Nina was already dialing. Absolutely. Melanie wants to play dirty? Let's see how she handles the truth under studio lights. 2 hours later, I sat in a different studio, facing Sarah from Tech Weekly. The red light blinked on, and we were live. With us today is Gianna, CEO of Wealthwise, responding to serious allegations made this morning. Gianna, your response? I smiled, projecting calm confidence. I'm glad you asked, Sarah. I'd like to share something with your viewers. I held up my old company laptop. This contains the original Wealthwise proposal, dated 18 months ago. I presented it to my former employer's board, where it was rejected. Interestingly, Melanie was in that board meeting. Sarah leaned forward. Are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. Our code is original, our platform is revolutionary, and we have the documentation to prove it. But more importantly, we have something CompFin doesn't. Actual users transforming their financial futures. Speaking of users, Sarah consulted her notes. Your growth has been unprecedented because we solved a real problem. While our competitors were focused on high-net-worth clients, we saw millions of everyday people struggling with financial planning. We didn't just build a platform, we built a community. The interview continued for 30 minutes. By the time it ended, our stock had not only recovered, but surged higher than before. Back at the office, champagne was flowing. "Did you see Melanie's face when they cut to her for comment?" Riley laughed. "She looked like she'd swallowed a lemon." "It's not over," Samson warned, adjusting his bow tie. "She'll try something else." As if on cue, my email pinged. It was from CompFin's CEO, requesting a private meeting. "Forward it to legal," Naomi advised, reading over my shoulder. "No." I stood up. "I want this meeting, but not private and not on their terms." The next morning, CompFin's CEO and Melanie walked into our office. I received them in our glass-walled conference room, deliberately visible to my entire team. "Impressive space," the CEO commented, looking around. "Thank you. We believe in transparency here." I gestured to the seats. "Unlike some companies." Melanie's perfectly manicured nails dug into her designer handbag. "We came to discuss a settlement." A settlement?" I raised an eyebrow. "For what? Your false allegations? Your attempted server breach? Or perhaps for stealing my original concept?" The CEO shifted uncomfortably. "We prefer to handle this quietly." "Like you handled the CNBC interview?" I opened my laptop, turning it to face them. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to publicly retract your allegations, and Melanie is going to resign." "Or what?" Melanie snapped. "Or I release the email chain showing you downloaded my original proposal the day before you joined CompFin. The timestamps are quite interesting." The color drained from Melanie's face. The CEO turned to her sharply. "You said there was no paper trail." "There's always a paper trail," I said softly. "The question is, how much damage do you want your company to sustain?" 20 minutes later, they left. Within hours, CompFin issued a retraction. By evening, Melanie's resignation was announced. "That was masterful," Samson said as we watched the news coverage. "No," I corrected him, thinking of Holden, of all the people who'd underestimated me. "That was just the warm-up." Looking out at my team celebrating, I felt a fierce pride. We weren't just building a company, we were building a legacy, and anyone who tried to stand in our way would learn just how expensive that mistake could be. $5 billion. The number hung in the air of our conference room like smoke. "That's our final offer." I studied the man across the table. Marcus, CEO of Global Financial Solutions, one of the largest financial technology companies in the world. His reputation for aggressive acquisitions preceded him. "It's a generous offer," Samson admitted, bow tie perfectly straight as he reviewed the terms. "Generous?" Marcus smiled. "It's unprecedented for a company your age. Full retention of your team, autonomy over product development, and you, Gianna, would join our board of directors." I glanced at Naomi, catching the slight shake of her head. Something felt off. "We'll need time to review the proposal," I said, standing up to end the meeting. "Of course." Marcus gathered his papers. "But don't take too long. Offers like this have expiration dates." After he left, my team erupted into chaos. $5 billion! Nina exclaimed. "Do you know what that means for everyone's stock options?" "It means we'd all be set for life," Riley added, but her expression was worried. "Though the timing seems suspicious," Naomi finished. "Right after we crushed CompFin's allegations and their stock tanked." My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Heard about the offer. We should talk." H. My blood ran cold. Holden. "Gianna?" Samson touched my arm. "You okay?" I showed him the text. His eyes narrowed. "Think there's a connection?" "Only one way to find out." I turned to Naomi. "Can you dig into Global Financial's recent acquisitions and their board members?" "Already on it." She was typing furiously. "Give me an hour." That hour turned into a late-night strategy session. Nina ordered pizza, while Naomi projected her findings onto the wall. "Look at this!" She pointed to a chart. Global Financial has acquired 6 companies in the past year. All of them were dismantled within months, their technology absorbed into existing products. "So much for autonomy," Riley muttered. "But here's the interesting part. Naomi pulled up another screen. 3 weeks ago, they added a new board member, Robert Sterling, managing partner at Sterling Investment Group. Holden's firm, I whispered. Bingo! Naomi crossed her arms. Want to bet who brought this deal to Marcus's attention? My phone buzzed again. Holden. Don't be stupid, Gianna. Take the deal. He's trying to profit from your success, Samson said, reading over my shoulder. After everything he did. I stood up abruptly, walking to the window. Seattle's lights twinkled below, reminding me of that night I decided to start over. Nina, I called out. What's our current user growth rate? Doubling every month. We're projected to hit 10 million users by quarter's end. And our revenue? Exceeding projections by 40%. I turned back to my team. So why sell? Why now, when we're just getting started? 5 billion reasons, Riley said softly. No. I shook my head. 5 billion reasons to quit, to let Holden win, to prove we're just another startup that got lucky. Samson adjusted his bow tie, a smile playing at his lips. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to show them what we're really worth. I grabbed a marker and approached the whiteboard. Nina, call that reporter from Tech Weekly again. Naomi, get me everything you can on Global Financial's acquisition history, especially the companies they dismantled. What's the play? Riley asked, already pulling out her notebook. They want to buy us? Fine. But we're going to make them work for it. I started writing on the board. First, we leak the offer to the press, but frame it as an hostile attempt to shut down a competitor. That'll drive our stock price up. Samson nodded approvingly. Then we announce our international expansion plans, the ones we've been keeping under wraps. Nina's eyes widened. The European partnership? And the Asian market rollout, I confirmed. By the time we're done, 5 billion will look like pocket change. My phone buzzed one more time. Holden again. Don't let pride cloud your judgment. You know you need this deal. I picked up my phone and finally replied, You're right, I do need this deal, to show you exactly what you walked away from. Then I addressed my team. Tomorrow, we go to war. Not just for our company, but for every person who's ever been underestimated, undermined, or cast aside. Who's with me? The room erupted in determined cheers. As everyone broke into task forces, Samson approached me. You know they'll fight back, he warned. Good. I smiled, thinking of Holden's smug face when he left me. I'm counting on it, because this time, I'm not the one who's going to end up looking pathetic. The city lights seemed brighter now, reflecting the fire in my eyes. Global Financial and Holden were about to learn an expensive lesson. Never try to buy what you couldn't break. The restaurant hostess led me to a private dining room where Holden was already waiting. He stood as I entered, looking exactly as I remembered. Expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, practiced smile. But this time, I felt nothing. Gianna, he said, moving to pull out my chair. You look... Save it. I sat down before he could reach me. You wanted to talk, so talk. He settled across from me, straightening his tie. A nervous habit I used to find endearing. You're making a mistake rejecting Global Financial's offer. Really? Our stock price jumped 15% after we announced our expansion plans. A temporary spike. He leaned forward. Listen, I know you're trying to prove something. Trying! I laughed. Our company is valued at 7 billion now. I'd say I've proven plenty. The waiter arrived with water. Holden waited until he left before continuing. Marcus is losing patience. He doesn't like being played with. Interesting choice of words. I pulled out my phone, showing him the screen. Almost as interesting as these emails between you and Robert Sterling, discussing how to force a hostile takeover of Wealthwise. His face paled slightly. Where did you get those? I have friends in interesting places, friends who actually stick around when things get tough. This isn't personal, Gianna. No? I raised an eyebrow. So you didn't tell Marcus about my emotional instability during the divorce? Didn't suggest I might crack under pressure? He shifted uncomfortably. You're twisting things. Actually, I'm finally seeing things clearly. I opened my portfolio. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take this back to Marcus and Sterling Investment Group. He glanced at the documents. A counteroffer? A warning. If Global Financial attempts any hostile moves against Wealthwise, these emails go public. I'm sure the SEC would be very interested in the timing of certain stock purchases. You're bluffing. Try me. I stood up. Oh, and Holden, that blonde you've been seeing? Melanie's friend, right? She works for me now. Funny how karma works. His face contorted with anger. You vindictive. Careful, I cut him off. Your true colors are showing. Again. I walked out, leaving him with the bill and the documents. Outside, Riley was waiting in her car. How'd it go? Exactly as planned. I buckled my seatbelt. Call Samson. Tell him to expect Marcus's call within the hour. Back at the office, Naomi was monitoring social media reactions to our expansion announcement. We're trending worldwide. The European markets are especially excited. Perfect timing, Nina added, rushing in. Tech Weekly just ran our feature on democratizing financial planning. The response is incredible. My phone rang. Samson. Marcus just called. He's furious. Says we're making a huge mistake. Good. I put him on speaker. How long until they make their move? Based on their trading patterns? Tomorrow morning. They'll try to trigger a sell-off. They're in for a surprise, Naomi smirked, showing me her screen. Our new security protocol is ready. Let them try to breach our systems now. The next morning, we gathered in the conference room, watching the market open. Right on schedule, large blocks of Wealthwise stock appeared for sale. They're trying to panic small investors, Samson explained. Not trying, succeeding. Riley pointed at the dropping numbers. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Time to launch Phase 2. Within minutes, news alerts started flashing. Wealthwise announces revolutionary banking partnership. Major European banks sign exclusive deals with Wealthwise. Asian markets welcome Wealthwise innovation. The stock price froze, then began to climb. Now, I told Naomi. She pressed enter, and our new platform feature went live. Instant international money transfers at a fraction of traditional costs. Something we'd been developing in secret for months. My phone buzzed with a text from Holden. You're playing a dangerous game. I replied, no, I'm winning one. By closing bell, our stock had hit a new record high. Global Financial's hostile takeover attempt had failed spectacularly, and Marcus's reputation was taking a hit. Look at this! Nina showed me her tablet. Business headlines were calling it the Tech David and Goliath story of the year. Should we expect retaliation? Riley asked. No, Samson answered, straightening his bow tie. They can't risk the exposure. Those emails Gianna has, they're career enders. I looked around at my team, my real family. Thank you, all of you. This victory belongs to everyone in this room. To us, Naomi raised her coffee cup. To karma, Riley added with a grin. I glanced at my phone one last time. Another text from Holden. I underestimated you. Yes, I whispered, deleting the message. You did. The Seattle skyline stretched before us, but now it didn't look like a reminder of what I'd lost. It looked like the beginning of what I'd won. Sign here and here. My lawyer pointed to the marked lines on the divorce papers. And initial these 3 pages. The penthouse conference room offered a panoramic view of Seattle, the same city where my marriage had crumbled a year ago. Now I was ending it on my terms. Holden sat across the table, his lawyer whispering in his ear. He looked smaller somehow, less intimidating than I remembered. Before we finish, I said, putting down my pen, there's something you should know. He looked up warily. I'm buying your firm's building. His face went slack. What? Sterling Investment Group's lease expires next month. As the new owner, I'm not renewing it. You can't do that, he sputtered. Actually, she can. Samson stepped forward, placing a document on the table. The purchase was finalized this morning. Holden's lawyer grabbed the paper, scanning it frantically. This is legitimate. Of course it is, I smiled, signing the final divorce paper with a flourish. Oh, and the moving company will be there Monday. I'd start packing if I were you. This is petty revenge, Holden snapped. No, this is business. I stood up. You taught me that, remember? When you called me a burden? The lawyers gathered the papers while Holden sat there stunned. As I turned to leave, he called out, You've changed. No. I paused at the door. I've just stopped letting people like you define my worth. Outside, Riley was waiting with champagne. Is it done? Almost. I checked my phone as it buzzed with a news alert. Wealthwise announces major partnership with Asian Financial Coalition. Our stock just hit another record, Naomi reported, joining us. The market loves the expansion news. Perfect timing, I smiled. Ready for phase 2? We headed to our office, where the team was gathered for an all-hands meeting. Nina had orchestrated everything perfectly. Cameras were set up for the live stream announcement. Going live in 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on. Good morning, I addressed the cameras. Today marks a new chapter for Wealthwise. We're not just expanding globally, we're revolutionizing how people access financial services. I nodded to Naomi, who launched the presentation behind me, introducing Wealthwise Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing financial education and resources to underserved communities. We're pledging $1 billion over 5 years to help those who've been ignored by traditional financial institutions. Social media exploded. Our PR team's screens lit up with notifications. And that's not all, I continued. We're also announcing our acquisition of Sterling Investment Group's former headquarters, which will become the Wealthwise Innovation Center, offering free financial literacy programs to the public. The office erupted in applause as I ended the live stream. Samson approached, grinning. That was masterful, using Holden's building for public good, poetic justice at its finest. My phone buzzed, a text from Melanie. I was wrong about you, both of us were. Delete, I muttered, then addressed my team. Everyone, listen up. The room quieted. A year ago, I thought losing my job and my marriage was the end of my story. But you all proved me wrong. You showed me it was just the beginning. To new beginnings, Riley called out, raising her glass. And to karma, Nina added. As celebrations broke out around me, I slipped into my office and opened my desk drawer. Inside was the note Holden had left the day he walked out. I'd kept it as a reminder, but now... You don't need that anymore, Naomi said from the doorway. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. No, I don't. The foundation announcement is trending worldwide, she reported. People are calling you a modern-day Robin Hood. I laughed. Robin Hood stole from the rich. I just beat them at their own game. My phone rang. It was Samson. You need to see this. Turn on CNBC. The office TV flickered to life, showing breaking news. Global Financial Solutions CEO Marcus steps down amid investigation. Those emails we had? Samson's voice was gleeful. Someone leaked them to the SEC. What a shame, I said, not even trying to hide my satisfaction. I wonder how that happened. Karma's not just a concept, Riley chimed in. Sometimes it's a carefully executed plan. Looking out at the Seattle skyline, I felt a sense of completion. The woman who'd stood crying in her bedroom doorway a year ago was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't just success, it's success with purpose. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number. You won. I didn't bother responding. He was right. I had won. But more importantly, I'd found something worth fighting for. My own power, my own worth, and a legacy that would help others find theirs too. And now, please welcome our keynote speaker, Wealthwise CEO Gianna. The applause thundered through the convention center as I took the stage at the Women in Tech Summit. The same stage where, just 2 years ago, I'd watched others speak while feeling small and insignificant in my corporate job. "Thank you," I began, setting aside the prepared speech. "But today, I'm not here to talk about success. I'm here to talk about failure." The audience quieted. Specifically, the day I thought my life was over. When my husband walked out, calling me a burden because I'd lost my job. Movement at the back of the hall caught my eye. Holden slipping into the audience. Perfect timing. That man did me a favor," I continued. "He showed me that my worth wasn't tied to his approval or anyone else's. But this isn't a revenge story." I gestured to the side of the stage where my team sat. "This is a story about finding your real family, about building something meaningful." Nina gave me a thumbs up while Riley wiped away tears. Wealthwise wasn't built on venture capital or market strategies. It was built on second chances. Every person on my team has a story of being underestimated, overlooked, or pushed aside. I clicked to the next slide, showing the Wealthwise Innovation Center, formerly Sterling Investment Group's building. Yesterday, we welcomed our 10,000th student to our free financial literacy program. Next week, we're opening centers in Tokyo and London, but numbers aren't what matter. I pointed to a young woman in the front row. What matters is that Sarah here, who just graduated from our coding boot camp, starts her new job on Monday. Sarah stood up, beaming, as applause broke out. That's what revenge really looks like. Not destroying others, but lifting people up. Creating opportunities, building bridges instead of burning them. From the corner of my eye, I saw Holden stand up, moving toward the exit. To the person leaving right now, yes, you, Holden, thank you. Thank you for showing me exactly who I didn't want to be. He froze, all eyes turning to him. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes, the people who hurt us become our greatest teachers. Holden slipped out the door as I continued. Last month, someone asked me if I'd forgiven him. The truth is, I have. Not because he deserved it, but because holding on to anger was holding me back. Samson adjusted his bow tie, nodding approvingly from his seat. Today, Wealthwise announces our biggest initiative yet, a $100 million fund for women entrepreneurs starting over, because everyone deserves a second act. The audience erupted in cheers. Naomi projected the application website onto the screen behind me. Applications open today. And yes, we're accepting candidates with no experience, no connections, and especially those who've been called burdens by people too small to see their potential. After the standing ovation, after the interviews and photographs, I found my team waiting backstage. "That wasn't the speech we prepared," Nina said, grinning. "No," Riley hugged me. "It was better." Speaking of better, Naomi checked her phone. Applications are flooding in, over 5,000 already. And guess who just posted on LinkedIn? Samson showed us his screen. Holden had announced his retirement from investment banking, citing personal reasons. "Karma really is a patient friend," Riley laughed. "Not karma," I corrected her. "Growth. He's finally learning what we already know, that true power isn't in tearing people down." My phone buzzed with a text from Melanie. "You've built something amazing. I was wrong about everything." This time, I replied, "There's room for everyone at the table, even former rivals." Looking at my team, my family, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. Not the fierce satisfaction of revenge, but the quiet confidence of knowing exactly who I was and what I stood for. "Ready to change more lives?" I asked them. "Always," they responded in unison. Outside, Seattle's skyline sparkled in the evening light. But I wasn't looking at the view anymore. I was looking at the reflection in the window, at a woman who'd turned pain into purpose, betrayal into blessing, and revenge into revolution. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, everyone was invited to be part of it. "Let's go home," I told my team. "We've got work to do, because the best revenge isn't just living well, it's helping others live better too. And that's a story worth telling, again and again, until everyone finds their own power to rise. The first red flag should have been the receipts from the casino, carelessly stuffed between the pages of his work planner. But love makes you blind, and I had been wearing the thickest pair of rose-colored glasses for the past decade. I'm Helen, and until last Tuesday, I thought I had the perfect marriage. Babe, I'm heading out for a client meeting, Cruz called out, adjusting his tie in our bedroom mirror. Might be a late one, I nodded, focused on the laptop screen where I was reviewing our monthly statements. Something wasn't adding up. Drive safe, I managed, my throat tight as I stared at yet another mysterious withdrawal. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I called my sister. Marley, I need you to come over, now. I'll be there in 15, she said, no questions asked. That's what I loved about her. While waiting, I dug deeper into Cruz's planner. Behind the pristine schedule of business meetings and client calls lay a different story. Betting slips, IOUs, and scribbled numbers that made my stomach churn. Marley arrived with coffee and her signature no-nonsense attitude. Spill, she demanded, settling onto our leather couch, the one Cruz insisted we needed to maintain appearances. I spread the evidence across our coffee table. Look at these withdrawals. 5,000 here, 8,000 there, and these betting slips. My hands trembled as I pointed to the dates. They match perfectly. That son of a bitch, Marley whispered, scanning the documents. How long has this been going on? I don't know, but our savings account. I pulled up the banking app. It's almost empty. He told me he was investing in real estate ventures. Have you confronted him? I shook my head. I'm scared to. You should see him at family dinners, bragging about his latest deals, charming everyone with stories of our future wealth. Even Sebastian, his impossible-to-please father, seems impressed lately. Marley grabbed my hand. Helen, this isn't about impressing family anymore. This is theft. He's stealing your future. My phone buzzed, a text from Cruz. My heart stopped when I saw it. What? Marley asked, noticing my expression. I showed her the message. Hey babe, need you to transfer $50K to my business account. Big opportunity coming up. We'll explain later. Love you. He's going to lose it all, I whispered, reality crashing down around me. Everything we've worked for. Marley's eyes narrowed. Don't transfer a penny. In fact, she pulled out her phone and dialed. Thomas, it's Marley. Remember Helen, my sister? She needs your help, financial advice. It's urgent. I started to protest, but she held up her hand. Listen, Helen, Tomas is the best financial advisor I know, and more importantly, he's discreet. Meeting in an hour? She confirmed, then hung up. Get dressed. We're going to fix this. I can't just... Yes, you can. And you will. Marley stood, pulling me up with her. Cruz isn't the only one who can play this game. The difference is, you're going to play it smart. As I changed clothes, another text came through. This time from an unknown number. Tell Cruz his bet is locked in. No backing out now. My hands shook as I showed Marley. Perfect, she said, her expression hardening. More evidence. Now come on, we're meeting Thomas. In the car, I stared out the window at our suburban neighborhood, where every house looked perfect from the outside. Just like my marriage. You know what the worst part is? I said quietly. Last week at dinner, he was telling Catherine about the vacation house we're supposedly buying. His mother was so excited, already planning family gatherings there. It's all lies. Then it's time to tell the truth, Marley replied, turning onto the highway. But first, we're going to make sure you're protected. My phone buzzed again. Cruz sending a heart emoji, acting like everything was normal. Like he wasn't gambling away our life savings while I sat here, finally seeing clearly for the first time in years. Marley, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. I want to destroy him. She glanced at me, a small smile playing on her lips. That's my girl. And trust me, by the time we're done, he won't know what hit him. I took a deep breath, feeling something shift inside me. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Determination. Cruz thought I was naive, the trusting wife who never questioned his business dealings. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. Tomas's office felt like a sanctuary of calm, all clean lines and soft lighting. He hadn't changed much since our childhood days, still the same thoughtful eyes and measured speech that made everyone trust him instantly. "The first thing we need to do," he said, reviewing the documents I'd brought, "is set up accounts he can't access. Separate everything." "But won't he notice?" I asked, twisting my wedding ring. "Not if we do it right." Thomas pulled up his computer screen. "You said he never checks the detailed statements?" "Never. He just asks me to transfer money when he needs it." Marley snorted. "When he needs to place bets, you mean? Here's what we'll do," Thomas said, typing rapidly. "I'm setting you up with a private trading account. We'll start small, but smart. Cruz won't notice money missing because there won't be any to miss. You'll be investing what's left before he can touch it." Over the next hour, Tomas walked me through the basics of online trading. It was surprisingly straightforward once he explained it. By the time we finished, I had made my first investment. "Remember," he warned, "this isn't about getting rich quick. It's about protecting yourself." My phone rang. Cruz. I let it go to voicemail. "He's probably wondering about that transfer," Marley said. "I should call him back." "No," both Marley and Thomas said simultaneously. "Let him sweat," Marley added. "You're busy with errands." When I finally returned home, Cruz was waiting, pacing the living room. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "I needed that transfer hours ago." I forced my face to remain neutral. "Sorry, honey. I was helping Marley with something. What's this opportunity you mentioned?" His expression shifted instantly, that familiar, charming smile appearing. "Baby, you won't believe it. This development project downtown. Totally exclusive. But we need to move fast." He wrapped his arms around me. "Did you make the transfer?" "I tried, but the app was giving me trouble. Maybe we should discuss it first?" "Helen!" He sighed, pulling away. "Don't you trust me? Haven't I always taken care of us?" I thought about the empty savings account. "Of course I trust you. I just want to understand better." "Look," he said, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "Sometimes in business, you have to move quickly, take risks. You know what my father's like, always watching, waiting for me to fail. I can't let that happen." The mention of Sebastian made me wince. Cruz's father had always been impossibly demanding, but was that really an excuse? "I'll figure something out," Cruz muttered, pulling out his phone. "Maybe I can delay." "No, that won't work." He started typing frantically. I went upstairs to change, using the moment alone to check my new trading app. The small investment I'd made earlier was already showing a modest gain. My hands shook as I thought about what I was doing, but Tomas's words echoed in my head. This isn't about revenge, it's about survival. That night, Cruz was unusually attentive, ordering my favorite takeout and suggesting we watch my preferred shows. I played along, all while my phone silently buzzed with updates from Marley and Thomas. "You know I love you, right?" Cruz said, pulling me close on the couch. "Everything I do for us." I forced myself to smile. "I know." Later, after Cruz fell asleep, I slipped downstairs with my laptop. Following Tomas's instructions, I began moving small amounts into my secret account. Not enough to raise suspicion, but enough to start building my safety net. My phone lit up with a text from Marley. "How are you holding up?" "I feel like I'm living a double life," I replied. "You are. But so is he. The difference is, you're doing it to protect yourself. He's doing it to destroy you both." The next morning, Cruz was back to his confident self. "Baby, I closed an amazing deal yesterday. We're going to be set for life." I nodded, sipping my coffee, while checking my trading app under the table. Another small gain. "We should have the family over soon," he continued. "Show them how well we're doing. Maybe next weekend?" "Sure," I said, thinking of Catherine's excitement about the non-existent vacation house. "Whatever you want." As he left for work, kissing me goodbye like nothing was wrong, I opened my laptop and logged into my secret account. The numbers were small, but they were mine. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of real hope. Marley was right. I could play this game too. And unlike Cruz, I was playing for keeps. The family gathering felt like a theater performance, with Cruz as the star and our home as his stage. I watched from the kitchen as he worked the room, champagne glass in hand, spinning tales of his latest investments. "You should see the property portfolio we're building," he announced to the admiring faces. "Helen and I are thinking of starting our own real estate firm." Catherine beamed with pride. "My son, the entrepreneur!" I busied myself arranging appetizers, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. Marley appeared beside me, sliding a glass of wine my way. "How are you holding up?" she whispered. "Barely breathing. Every word out of his mouth is a lie." Sebastian's booming voice carried from the living room. "Cruz, tell them about that development project downtown." My hands froze on the cheese platter. The fictional project he'd tried to get $50,000 for last week. "No, actually, Dad," Cruz said smoothly, "we're keeping that one quiet for now. Very exclusive, you understand." Sebastian nodded knowingly, but something flickered in his eyes. He pulled Cruz aside, their voices dropping to whispers by the window. Allison, Cruz's sister, bounced into the kitchen. "Helen, you're so lucky. Cruz is just amazing. How does it feel being married to such a successful man?" I forced a smile. "Blessed. Could you help me with these plates?" My brother Harold stood alone in the corner, watching Cruz with narrowed eyes. They hadn't spoken since their falling out over a borrowed sum that Cruz never repaid. Now I wondered if that money had gone to gambling debts too. "Ladies and gentlemen," Cruz clinked his glass, "I'd like to make a toast. To family, to success, and to my beautiful wife who supports all my ventures." Everyone raised their glasses. I caught Harold's eye across the room. He didn't drink. "Helen!" Catherine called out. "Tell us about the vacation house. Cruz says it's right on the water?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A notification from my trading app. Another successful investment. The irony wasn't lost on me. "It's still in the planning stages," I managed. "Planning stages?" Sebastian's eyebrows rose. "Cruz told me you'd already put down a deposit." Cruz appeared behind me, his hand pressing firmly against my lower back. "We're being careful with the announcements, Dad. Market sensitivity and all that." Sebastian pulled Cruz aside again, their whispered conversation more intense this time. I caught fragments. "Cannot afford another scandal?" And, just like Atlantic City, Marley touched my arm. "Bathroom break?" In the safety of the powder room, I showed her my phone. "My investments have doubled since last week." "That's my girl," she grinned. "How much has Cruz asked for lately?" 3 separate urgent transfers. I keep making excuses. A knock at the door made us jump. "Helen?" It was Catherine. "Dear, is everything all right?" We emerged to find her waiting, concern etched on her face. "You seem distant tonight." "Just tired," I said. "Work's been busy." Back in the living room, Cruz was deep in conversation with Allison about some new business contact who was going to change everything. I watched him gesture enthusiastically, watched everyone lean in, completely captivated by his performance. Harold approached me quietly. "You okay, sis?" "Fine," I said automatically. "Really? Because that vacation house Cruz mentioned? The one on Lake Geneva?" He paused. "I drove by there yesterday. For sale sign's still up. No sold sticker." My heart skipped. "Harold!" "Just be careful," he murmured, squeezing my arm before walking away. The evening wound down with Cruz proposing another toast, this time to future ventures and family unity. Sebastian watched him with an unreadable expression, while Catherine dabbed happy tears from her eyes. As everyone was leaving, Sebastian pulled Cruz aside one final time. "Don't make me regret covering for you again," he said, just loud enough for me to hear. Cruz's face hardened for a split second before his charm slipped back into place. "Dad, trust me. Everything's under control." After the last guest left, Cruz loosened his tie and poured another drink. Perfect night, wouldn't you say? Everyone's impressed with our success. I started cleaning up, collecting empty glasses. Sebastian seemed concerned about something. My father's always concerned, Cruz laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. He doesn't understand modern business. Speaking of which, he pulled out his phone. I need you to make another transfer tomorrow. Big opportunity coming up. How big? I asked, thinking of my secret trading account. Just 30,000. Small change compared to what we'll make back. I nodded silently, already composing a message to Tomas in my head. The house of cards Cruz had built was starting to sway, and I needed to be ready when it fell. Something's not adding up, Tomas said, scrolling through the bank statements spread across his desk. These transfers, they're going to shell companies that don't exist. I leaned forward, pointing at a recurring payment. What about this one? $20,000 every month to Summit Ventures? Tomas typed rapidly on his keyboard. Summit Ventures, registered 3 months ago. Wait. His face darkened. The address is a betting shop in Vegas. My stomach lurched. How much has he sent them? In total? Tomas ran the calculations. Over 200,000. The room spun. I gripped the edge of his desk until my knuckles turned white. There's more, he said quietly. Remember that lake house he's been talking about? The one Harold said wasn't sold? It was sold. 2 months ago. Tomas turned his screen toward me. To this couple from Michigan. My phone buzzed, Cruz asking where I was. I ignored it. Helen, Tomas said gently, there's something else you need to see. He pulled up another document. Your house equity loan. It was refinanced last month. What? That's impossible. I never signed anything. Are you sure about that? Look at the signature. The signature looked exactly like mine. My blood ran cold as I remembered the stack of papers Cruz had me sign for tax purposes while I was rushing to work. I'm calling Marley, Tomas said, already dialing. We need to move faster. Marley arrived 20 minutes later, bringing coffee and her laptop. I've been doing some digging too, she said. You remember that weird comment Sebastian made about Atlantic City? She pulled up an old newspaper article. The headline made my heart stop. Local casino reports major fraud attempt. It's from 6 years ago, she explained. No names mentioned, but the dates match when Cruz suddenly left his job at the investment firm. Sebastian covered it up, I whispered. That's what he meant at dinner. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from an unknown number. Tell Cruz his payment is late. 48 hours, or we go public. I showed it to Thomas and Marley. Forward that to me, Tomas said. I know someone who can trace it. What am I supposed to do about the 30,000 he wants me to transfer? I asked. Nothing, Marley said firmly. You're not giving him another penny. My phone rang. Cruz again. This time I answered. Where are you? He demanded. I've been calling for hours. At Marley's, I lied smoothly. Girl stuff? Why? I need you home, now. That transfer can't wait. I looked at Thomas and Marley, who were both shaking their heads. I can't right now, I said. Maybe tomorrow. Helen, his voice turned cold. This isn't a request. I need that money today. Is everything okay? I asked, trying to sound concerned. You seem stressed. Everything's fine, he snapped. Just get home and make the transfer. After I hung up, Marley grabbed my shoulders. You can't go home, not when he's like this. I have to, I said. If I don't, he'll know something's wrong. Tomas was still typing. Got it. That transfer to Summit Ventures last week? It bounced. They're probably the ones threatening him. Which means he's desperate, Marley added. My trading app pinged. Another successful investment. In the past few weeks, I'd managed to build a decent nest egg. Not enough to replace what Cruz had lost, but enough to survive on. Stay with me tonight, Marley pleaded. No. I stood up, gathering my things. I need to face him, but first. I turned to Thomas. Show me everything. Every transfer, every fake company, every lie. I want it all documented. For the next hour, we compiled evidence. Bank statements, property records, threatening texts, everything. Thomas even found photos of Cruz entering various casinos, time-stamped during his supposed business meetings. "What are you going to do?" Marley asked as we finished. "Right now? I'm going home to make excuses about why I can't transfer money. Tomorrow?" I took a deep breath. "Tomorrow, I start planning the family dinner where everything comes out." "Be careful," Tomas warned. "Men like Cruz when they're cornered." "I know," I said, thinking of the cold edge in Cruz's voice earlier. "But I'm done being afraid." As I drove home, my phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. "Time's running out." I smiled grimly. They had no idea how right they were. For Cruz, time wasn't just running out, it was about to explode in his face. And this time, Sebastian wouldn't be able to cover it up. "The annual family dinner is in 3 days," I told Marley as we sat in her kitchen, organizing the evidence into a folder. "It's perfect timing." "Are you sure you want to do it with everyone there?" she asked, sorting through bank statements. "They all need to see the truth at once. No more whispered conversations. No more covering up." My phone lit up with a message from an unfamiliar Instagram account. "Mrs. McCarthy, we have information about your husband you might want to see." I showed Marley. "Click it," she said. "Could be more ammunition." The message contained photos. Cruz entering various casinos, sitting at high-stakes tables, arguing with what looked like loan sharks in parking lots, all dated during his supposed business trips. "Holy shit," Marley whispered. "Who sent these?" "Someone who wants money, probably," I replied, but saved the photos anyway. "Add them to the pile." Cruz had been increasingly erratic since I'd refused the $30,000 transfer. His charm was slipping, revealing something darker underneath. This morning, he'd slammed doors and shouted into his phone about buying more time. My burner phone buzzed. Tomas had insisted I get one. "Meeting at the casino tonight," he texted. "My contact says Cruz is desperate for a big win." "Perfect," I replied. "That's when I'll get his laptop." Marley looked up sharply. "That's risky." "It's necessary. The laptop has all his gambling accounts, all his secrets." The plan was simple. While Cruz was losing more money at the casino, I'd access his laptop using the password I'd seen him type countless times. Tomas would help me download everything. "Catherine called earlier," I told Marley. "She's worried about Cruz, says he's not himself lately." "If she only knew," Marley muttered. My regular phone rang. Cruz. "Hey baby, working late again, don't wait up." "Casino late or actual work late?" I wanted to ask, but instead said, "Okay, be safe." The moment he hung up, I texted Tomas. "He's heading there. I'm going home now." Marley grabbed my arm. "Want me to come?" "No, I need to do this alone, but stay on standby." At home, Cruz's laptop sat on his desk like a ticking bomb. I entered his password, Winner 2023. The irony wasn't lost on me. "I'm in," I texted Tomas. "Check his emails first," he replied. "Look for anything from Summit Ventures." There were dozens, each more desperate than the last. "Payment overdue. Final warning. Collateral required." I forwarded everything to Thomas, then started on the gambling sites. The numbers made me dizzy. Hundreds of thousands lost, loans taken out, payment plans defaulted on. A new email popped up. "Your account is now locked. Outstanding balance, $178,000. Payment required within 24 hours. My hands shook as I downloaded everything. In the background, I could hear Marley's voice in my head. "Get everything. Leave no stone unturned." A text from my burner phone. "He's losing big tonight. Already down 50K. Tomas." I worked faster, copying files, taking screenshots. Then I found it. A folder labeled Property Docs. Inside were forged papers, fake bank statements, and doctored photos of properties he claimed to own. "You won't believe what I just found," I texted Marley, attaching photos. "This is better than we hoped," she replied. He's going down hard. Headlights swept across the house, a car pulling into the driveway. My heart stopped. He's home, I texted frantically. Get out of there, Marley replied. I closed everything, put the laptop exactly as I'd found it, and barely made it to the kitchen before the front door opened. Cruz stumbled in, his usual grace gone. His eyes were wild, tie askew. Helen, he slurred, I need you to do something for me. What's wrong? I asked, noting his trembling hands. I need you to sign something, for the business. Now? It's midnight. Yes, now, he snapped, then immediately softened. Please, baby, it's important. I thought of the forged signatures I'd already discovered. Can we do it tomorrow, when you're more yourself? He slammed his fist on the counter, making me jump. Why won't you just trust me? Cruz, you're scaring me. That seemed to wake him up. He ran his hands through his hair, composing himself. I'm sorry, baby. I'm just stressed about work. Go to bed. We'll talk tomorrow. As I lay in bed later, listening to him pace downstairs, my phone lit up with messages. Tomas. Documents secured. You won't believe what else I found. Marley. Everything ready for the dinner? Unknown number. Tell Cruz his time is up. We're contacting his family. I smiled in the darkness. They could save themselves the trouble. In 3 days, at the annual family dinner, Cruz's carefully constructed world would crumble. And this time, not even Sebastian could save him. The morning of the family dinner dawned bright and cold. I'd barely slept, but adrenaline kept me moving as I prepared the house. Cruz was already up, making calls in his office, his voice carrying through the walls. I don't care what it takes, he hissed into his phone. Get me an extension. No, you don't understand. My family can't know about this. The doorbell rang. Marley, arriving early as planned. Everything ready? She whispered, helping me with the table settings. I patted the manila envelope hidden in the sideboard. All the evidence is here. Tomas is bringing the final documents tonight. Cruz emerged from his office, all smiles despite the dark circles under his eyes. Marley, you're early. Just helping my favorite sister, she said sweetly. I caught the steel in her voice. Great, he said distractedly, checking his phone. Listen, Helen, I need to run out for a bit. Last-minute business thing. Before the family dinner? I asked. Won't take long, promise. He kissed my cheek, his lips trembling slightly. The moment he left, Marley turned to me. He's panicking. Good, I said, straightening the silverware. Let him squirm. My phone buzzed. A message from Harold. Just saw Cruz at the bank. He looks desperate. Then another message from Sebastian. Is everything all right with Cruz? He's not answering my calls. They're all starting to see cracks, Marley observed, reading over my shoulder. The afternoon passed in a blur of preparation. Cruz returned looking worse than when he'd left, immediately disappearing into his office. I could hear him arguing in hushed tones. At 5, the doorbell rang again. Tomas stood there, briefcase in hand. Final documents, he murmured, slipping me a folder. Including proof of the Atlantic City incident. Cruz appeared suddenly. Thomas? What are you doing here? Helen asked me to join dinner, he said smoothly. Hope that's okay. Before Cruz could respond, more guests arrived. Catherine hugged me tight, while Sebastian eyed his son with barely concealed concern. Allison bounced in with her usual energy, though it felt forced tonight. Harold arrived last, giving me a knowing look as he handed me a bottle of wine. As everyone settled in the living room, Cruz tried to maintain his usual charismatic host persona, but I could see him checking his phone every few minutes, sweat beading on his forehead. Cruz! Sebastian called out. That development project you mentioned, how's it progressing? Ah, excellently, Cruz said, tugging at his collar. In fact, his phone rang. He glanced at it, face paling. Excuse me, he muttered, practically running to his office. Is everything okay? Catherine asked me, concern evident in her voice. It will be, I said, catching Marley's eye. Dinner's ready, shall we? As everyone moved to the dining room, Cruz returned, his composure clearly shaken. Before we eat, he announced, forcing a smile, I have exciting news about our latest venture. His phone buzzed again. This time, I saw the message preview. Final warning, pay now or we expose everything. Cruz's hands shook as he declined the call. Actually, I said, standing up, I have something to share first. Helen, Cruz warned, but I was already walking to the sideboard. You see, I continued, retrieving the manila envelope. I've been doing some investing of my own lately. Cruz's face went from pale to ashen. Would anyone like to see what I've discovered about our family's financial situation? I asked, opening the envelope. This isn't the time, Cruz said through gritted teeth. It's exactly the time, I replied, laying out the first document, a bank statement showing massive transfers to Summit Ventures. Sebastian leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. What is this? Evidence, I said simply, continuing to lay out papers. Of fraud, gambling, and lies. Helen, stop! Cruz pleaded. The lake house doesn't exist. The development project? A cover for gambling debts. Those business meetings? I spread out the casino photos. Well, see for yourselves. The room fell silent as everyone stared at the evidence. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. Sebastian's face turned thunderous. Allison started crying quietly. Cruz's phone rang again. This time, when he looked at it, all the fight seemed to leave him. How long have you known? He whispered. Long enough to protect myself, I replied, pulling out one final document. Divorce papers. And long enough to ensure you can never do this to me again. The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. Tomas stood up. That would be the investigators, he said calmly. They're very interested in discussing Atlantic City. Cruz looked wildly at his father. Dad? But Sebastian just shook his head, standing up. Not this time, son. Not anymore. As voices filled the hallway, I sat down calmly and poured myself a glass of wine. Dinner, I announced to the shocked faces around the table, is served. The investigators were professional and direct, setting up in Cruz's office, while the family sat in stunned silence around the dining table. The sound of their questions drifted down the hallway. When did the gambling begin, Mr. McCarthy? Who else was involved in the Atlantic City incident? Catherine broke first, her wine glass trembling. Sebastian, did you know about this? Not everything, Sebastian replied, his voice heavy. I knew about Atlantic City. I thought I'd fixed it. Fixed it? Harold scoffed. You enabled him, just like when he borrowed money from me. Allison stood up suddenly, mascara streaking her cheeks. This is all lies. Helen's making this up because what? Marley cut in. Because she didn't want to watch her husband gamble away their entire future? Show her the equity loan, Helen. I pulled out the document with my forged signature. Allison collapsed back into her chair. The vacation house, Catherine whispered. The business ventures? Everything was a lie? Not everything, I said, pulling up my trading app. I've been making my own investments, real ones, small but legitimate. Tomas nodded. Helen's actually quite good at it, unlike someone who bet it all on red. A crash from the office made everyone jump. Cruz's voice rose, desperate and angry. You don't understand. I was about to win it all back. One more week. The investigator's response was calm but firm. Sir, you owe multiple casinos over $500,000. There is no winning it back. Catherine started crying softly. Sebastian put his arm around her. His face aged 10 years in one evening. I trusted him with everything, I said, breaking the silence. Our savings, our future, our life together. And he bet it all away. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Allison demanded. Would you have believed me? I asked. You all saw what you wanted to see. The successful son, the perfect husband, the brilliant businessman. Harold reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how bad it was. Cruz appeared in the doorway, escorted by 2 investigators. His tie was loose, his confident facade completely shattered. "Helen," he pleaded, "we can fix this. I'll get help. I'll—" "Sign the divorce papers," I said quietly. "It's over." "Listen to me." He tried to step forward, but the investigators held him back. "Everything I did for us, to give you the life you deserved." "No!" I stood up, finally letting my anger show. "You did it for yourself, for your ego, for your addiction. I deserved the truth, and you couldn't even give me that." Sebastian stood up. "Son, how much do you owe? Maybe I can—" "No," I cut in. "No more enabling, no more covering up. He needs to face the consequences." "They're going to press charges," Cruz said, his voice breaking. "Dad, please." "I'm sorry," Sebastian replied, looking every bit his age. "Helen's right. This ends now." Catherine rushed from the room in tears, Allison following close behind. Harold watched them go, then turned to Cruz. "Remember when you said you'd pay me back? That it was just a temporary loan?" He shook his head. "I should have warned Helen then." "Mr. McCarthy," one of the investigators said, "we need to continue our discussion downtown." As they led Cruz away, he looked back one last time. "I really did love you, Helen." "No," I replied, my voice steady. "You loved the idea of me. The trusting wife who never questioned, never doubted. That person doesn't exist anymore." After Cruz left, Sebastian remained at the table, staring at the evidence spread before him. "I thought I was protecting him," he said quietly. "Instead, I made it worse." "You all did," Marley replied. "Except Helen. She protected herself." Tomas gathered the documents carefully. "The investigators will need copies of everything. Helen, are you ready to make a formal statement?" I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in months. "I'm ready for all of it." "What happens now?" Allison asked from the doorway, her makeup completely ruined. "Now?" I picked up my wine glass. "Now Cruz faces the consequences of his actions. The casinos want their money, the banks want answers, and I want a divorce." "And the family?" Catherine's voice was small. "That's up to you," I replied. "But I suggest you all take a long, hard look at how we got here, at how many red flags we ignored." Sebastian stood up slowly. "We should go. Helen, I'm sorry, for everything." As the family filed out, Marley and Tomas stayed behind, helping me clear the untouched dinner from the table. "You did it," Marley said, hugging me tight. "No," I corrected her, looking at the trading app on my phone, at the new life I'd built for myself. "We did it, and this is just the beginning." The morning sun streamed through my new apartment windows as I reviewed the final divorce settlement. Marley sat across from me, scanning her own copy. "They really took him for everything," she said, flipping through the pages. "The casinos got most of it," I replied. "But I got what matters, my freedom." My phone buzzed, a text from Catherine. "Having coffee downtown. Could we talk?" I showed Marley the message. "Are you ready for that?" she asked. "Might as well be." I grabbed my keys. "Want to come?" Catherine looked smaller somehow, sitting alone at the cafe table. The perfectly coiffed hair and designer clothes were gone, replaced by something simpler, more real. "Helen," she stood as we approached. "Thank you for coming." "How's Cruz?" Marley asked as we sat down. Catherine's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "The rehabilitation program seems to be helping. Sebastian's refusing to pay his gambling debts, so—" She trailed off. "Good," I said. "He needs to face this himself." "I keep thinking about all the signs I ignored," Catherine said quietly. "The late-night calls, the mood swings, the endless business opportunities. I wanted so badly to believe in him." "We all did," I replied. "That's how he got away with it for so long." My trading app pinged. Another successful investment. Catherine noticed the sound. Tomas tells me you're doing well with your portfolio. Small steps, but real ones. I showed her the numbers. No fake properties, no empty promises, just careful planning and honest work. I filed for divorce, Catherine said suddenly. From Sebastian. Marley and I exchanged surprised looks. Huh? After everything came out about Atlantic City, about how long he'd been covering for Cruz, she straightened her shoulders. I realized I'd been living with lies too. My phone buzzed again. A message from Thomas. Investment group loved your presentation. They want you to lead the new project. Life has a way of revealing what's real, I said, showing Catherine the message. And what matters? Allison asked about you, Catherine ventured. She's struggling with everything. Tell her to call me when she's ready to hear the truth. All of it. The cafe door chimed. Harold walked in, spotted us, and headed over. Thought I might find you here, he said, pulling up a chair. Just came from the courthouse. Cruz's plea deal is final. Catherine flinched. How long? 18 months, plus mandatory counseling and restitution payments. Harold turned to me. You okay? I thought about the question. About the nights I'd spent crying, the moments of doubt, the fear of starting over, but also about the strength I'd found, the support I'd received, the life I'd built from the ashes of Cruz's lies. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. My phone lit up with another notification, this time from the real estate agent. The papers for my new condo were ready. Speaking of free, Marley grinned. When's the housewarming party? Next weekend, I said. Small gathering. Real friends only. Catherine's eyes welled up. I understand if I'm not. You're invited, I cut in. New beginnings, remember? Sebastian keeps asking if you'll drop the charges, she said hesitantly. Not a chance, Marley answered for me. Good, Catherine surprised us by saying. Some lessons need to be learned the hard way. Harold raised his coffee cup. To lessons learned. As we clinked cups, I felt the last weight lift from my shoulders. Cruz had taken so much, but he'd failed to take what mattered most. My resilience, my self-worth, my ability to trust my own judgment. You know what's funny, I said, pulling up my investment portfolio. While Cruz was losing everything on red, I was building something real, something mine. To real things, Marley said, raising her cup again. And real people, Catherine added softly. My phone buzzed one final time. An email from Cruz's rehabilitation center. I deleted it without reading it. Ready to go? Marley asked. We've got a condo to furnish. As we stood to leave, Catherine touched my arm. Thank you, she said. Not just for meeting me, but for showing us all the truth, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt, I corrected. That's when the truth matters most. Walking out into the sunlight, I felt the warmth on my face and smiled. Cruz had gambled everything on lies and lost. I had bet everything on the truth, and won more than I'd ever imagined possible. Coming, Marley called from ahead. Yeah, I said, catching up to my sister, my friend, my strongest supporter. I'm right where I need to be.
The note I left was simple. You forgot my birthday. I won't let you forget me. Petty? Maybe. But after 7 years of marriage, I deserved more than being excluded from my own house party. I'm Sonia, and this is how I finally stopped being the invisible backbone of the Dunn family empire. It started when I pulled into our driveway at 6 p.m., returning from a lonely dinner I treated myself to since no one had remembered my birthday. The first sign something was wrong was all the cars parked along our street. I recognized them all. Jake's mother's Mercedes, his sister Sophia's Range Rover, even his cousin's beat-up Volkswagen. Music drifted from our open windows, along with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. My hands trembled as I turned off the ignition. Surely there had to be an explanation. Jake wouldn't throw a party on my birthday without me. Would he? I used my key to open the front door, and the noise hit me full force. Our living room was packed with Jake's family and friends, all holding drinks and chatting animatedly. A large banner hung across the fireplace. "Congratulations on the Miller account, Jake." My husband stood in the center of it all, champagne glass raised, his mother Emerson's arm wrapped proudly around his shoulders. "To my brilliant son," she was saying, "who single-handedly landed the biggest client of the year." Single-handedly. Right. I had spent 3 months preparing that proposal, staying up until 2 a.m. most nights, researching every detail about Miller Industries while Jake played golf with his buddies. I had written every word of that presentation Jake had delivered. "Sonia," Sophia spotted me first, her eyes widening. "I didn't know you'd be here." The room fell quiet. Jake turned, his expression shifting from celebration to confusion. "Honey, you're home early. I thought you had that thing tonight." "That thing?" I kept my voice steady. "You mean my birthday dinner? Alone?" Emerson's perfectly painted lips formed an O of false surprise. "Oh dear, was that today? Jake, you should have said something." But Jake was already turning back to his guests, raising his glass again. "Everyone, let's welcome my wife to the party. Come on, honey, grab a drink. We're celebrating." "Jake," I said quietly, "can we talk privately?" He sighed, that familiar look of annoyance crossing his face. "Not now, Sonia. We have guests." "It'll just take a minute." I said not now. He snapped, then immediately softened his tone, aware of watching eyes. "Just mingle, okay? We'll talk later." I stood there for a moment, watching him return to his admirers. 7 years of supporting him, of being the silent partner, of letting him take credit for my work. 7 years of his mother's subtle digs and his sister's two-faced friendship. 7 years of being invisible in my own home. I turned and walked upstairs, my heels clicking against the hardwood floors. In our bedroom, I pulled out my largest suitcase and began methodically packing my clothes. From my home office, I retrieved my laptop and the external hard drive containing all my work files, proposals, client lists, financial records, everything I had built for Jake's family business while letting him take the credit. The party continued downstairs, oblivious to my actions. I could hear Emerson's laugh, the same laugh she'd used when telling Jake he could do better than me at our wedding reception. My phone buzzed, a text from my friend Zuriel. "Happy birthday. How's your day been?" I typed back, "Can I stay with you for a while?" Her response was immediate. "Of course. Everything okay?" "It will be." I took one last look around the bedroom, at the life I had let myself be pushed into the margins of. Then I picked up my suitcase, laptop bag, and purse. The party was in full swing as I walked down the stairs and straight out the front door. No one noticed. In my car, I took out a notepad and wrote my message. Simple, direct. 7 words that would make them remember me. I walked back to place it on the kitchen counter, where Jake would find it when the party was over. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of our house in my rearview mirror. Through the windows, I could see shadows of people celebrating, raising their glasses to Jake's success built on my invisible foundation. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I was leaving and I was taking that foundation with me. Let's see how well their house stands without it. My phone buzzed again, Zuriel sending her address. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about what you do to others, but what you do for yourself. And this was just the beginning. Zuriel's apartment felt like stepping into a different world. No pristine furniture chosen by my mother-in-law. No family photos of the perfect Dunn dynasty. Just comfortable chaos and the smell of coffee. "Spill," Zuriel demanded, pushing a steaming mug into my hands. "What happened?" My phone buzzed for the 20th time. Jake again. I silenced it. "They threw a party without me, on my birthday, to celebrate Jake's big account win." I took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth steady me. The account I basically handed to him on a silver platter. The Miller proposal? Zuriel's eyes widened. The one you've been killing yourself over for months? 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. I pulled out my laptop, opening the files I'd brought with me. Look at this. Every presentation, every spreadsheet, every market analysis, all done by me. Jake just had to show up and smile. Zuriel leaned over my shoulder, scrolling through the documents. Holy shit, Sonia. This is everything. The entire business infrastructure. Funny thing about being invisible, I said, managing a small smile. People forget you're there. They leave their passwords lying around. They don't notice when you're copying files or learning their systems. My phone lit up again, this time with a text from Sophia. Where are you? Jake is freaking out. Mom's saying you're just being dramatic. Of course she is, I muttered, showing Zuriel the message. What are you going to do? Zuriel asked, settling onto her couch. You can stay here as long as you need, but I need a plan, I finished. I opened another folder on my laptop, this one containing something I'd been working on secretly for months. Remember Theo, Jake's old rival from business school? The one who started his own consulting firm? Yeah, why? He's been trying to expand into our market sector. 2 weeks ago, he reached out to me. Apparently, he'd heard through the grapevine who really runs the Dunn family business. Zuriel sat up straighter. Are you saying what I think you're saying? My phone buzzed again, an email this time from Lauren, my assistant at work. Mrs. Dunn, is everything okay? Mr. Dunn came in looking for you. He seems upset. I quickly typed back, Lauren, I need you to trust me. Don't tell anyone, but I won't be coming back to the office. Would you be interested in a new opportunity? You're going to start your own business, Zuriel said. It wasn't a question. With Theo's backing and Lauren's help? I nodded. I'm done being the ghostwriter of my own life. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Through the peephole, I saw Jake, looking disheveled. Don't answer it, I whispered to Zuriel. Zuriel, Jake called out. I know Sonia's in there. Her car's outside. Baby, please, let's talk about this. Zuriel and I stayed silent, watching his shadow under the door. Fine, he shouted after a few minutes. Be childish, but we need those files, Sonia. The Miller presentation is next week, and you have all the data. I smiled grimly. Exactly. After Jake's footsteps faded, Zuriel turned to me. You really thought this through, didn't you? I've had 7 years to think it through. I opened my email and started composing a message to Theo. 7 years of watching Jake take credit for my work. 7 years of his mother treating me like an accessory. 7 years of being the silent partner in my own marriage. My phone lit up with Lauren's response. Whatever you're planning, I'm in. This place is chaos without you already. Perfect, I murmured, adding her to the email to Theo. You know they're going to fight back, Zuriel warned. Emerson won't let you just walk away with their business secrets. Let them try. I hit send on the email to Theo. I've got copies of every email where Jake took credit for my work, every meeting where he presented my ideas as his own, every client relationship I built while he played golf. And the Miller account? I closed my laptop with a satisfying click. Jake has exactly 6 days to either admit to Miller Industries that he can't do the presentation without me or try to fake his way through it and lose the biggest account of the year. Either way, I win. Zuriel raised her coffee mug in a toast. To no longer being invisible. I clinked my mug against hers, feeling a surge of excitement replace the hurt and anger. To becoming unforgettable. My phone buzzed one final time. Theo's response. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Let's talk about your future. For the first time since discovering the party, I felt myself truly smile. They wanted to celebrate Jake's success without me? Fine. Let's see how much success they have when the real architect of that success decides to build something of her own. Theo's office was everything the Dunn family business wasn't. Modern, open, and welcoming. No dark wood paneling or stuffy oil paintings of previous generations. Just clean lines and natural light. I have to admit, Theo said, leaning back in his chair, I've been waiting for this day. Jake never deserved the success you built for him. Lauren sat beside me, nervously adjusting her tablet. She'd arrived early, bringing with her a complete breakdown of our current client portfolio. The Miller presentation is in 5 days, I said, getting straight to business. Jake doesn't have access to the final documents, and trust me, he can't recreate them from memory. Theo's eyes sparkled. And you want to use that leverage. I want to build something of my own, I corrected him. The leverage is just a bonus. My phone buzzed, a text from Emerson. This childish behavior needs to stop. Come home and we can discuss your concerns, like adults. I showed the message to Lauren, who rolled her eyes. She called me this morning trying to get me to access your files. I told her I didn't have your passwords. But you do, I smiled. Of course I do, Lauren grinned back. I just don't have them for her. Theo spread out some papers on his desk. Here's what I'm proposing. We create a new consulting division under my company's umbrella. You'll have complete autonomy, your own team, and a significant equity stake. Lauren can come on as your operations manager. And Miller? I asked. We approach them directly. Show them who really developed their strategy. My phone rang. Jake this time. 4th call today. I declined it. He's getting desperate, Lauren noted. The Miller representatives have been calling all morning, asking for specific details about the implementation timeline. He keeps telling them you're under the weather. A new email popped up on my phone from Jake's lawyer. Subject line, cease and desist, confidential business information. Right on schedule, I muttered, opening the email. They're threatening legal action if I don't return all company documents and agree not to compete. Theo reached for the phone. May I? I handed it over, watching as he read the email, his smile growing wider. This is perfect, he said. They just admitted in writing that you possessed and created these materials. Makes it much easier to prove your contribution when we counter. Counter? Lauren asked. With evidence of intellectual property theft, I explained. Every time Jake presented my work as his own, he was essentially stealing it. I've documented everything. My phone buzzed again, Sophia this time. Mom's talking about calling the police. Please, Sonia, just come talk to us. The police? Lauren looked worried. Empty threat, Theo assured her. They won't involve law enforcement because they can't prove you didn't have authority to access those files. You were, after all, a key executive in the company. Not officially, I said bitterly. On paper, I was just Jake's wife who helped out sometimes, which makes their legal position even weaker, Theo pointed out. They can't claim you stole company secrets while also claiming you were just a housewife. A notification popped up on my laptop, an email from Miller Industries, requesting clarification on project leadership. Perfect timing, I smiled, opening the email. They're asking who will be handling their account going forward. Apparently, Jake's answers in their morning call weren't very convincing. What are you going to do? Lauren asked. I started typing. Dear Mr. Miller, I apologize for any confusion. As the architect of your proposed strategy, I want to inform you of some recent changes. They'll be furious, Lauren whispered. They already are, I replied, hitting send. Might as well give them a real reason. Theo stood up, walking to his office window. 5 years ago, Jake stole a major client from me. used inside information he got from a mutual friend. I lost millions. I remember, I said quietly. I'm the one who told him not to do it. And now, here we are. Theo turned back to us. Ready to sign the paperwork? I looked at Lauren, who nodded enthusiastically. Then at my phone, where messages from Jake, Emerson, and Sophia continued to pile up. Finally, at the contract Theo had prepared, offering me everything I'd earned but never received at the Dunn family business. One condition, I said, picking up the pen. We do this right. No shortcuts, no tricks, just better service, better strategies, and better leadership than they ever had. Of course, Theo agreed. The best revenge is massive success. As I signed my name, my phone lit up with a response from Miller Industries. Meeting requested to discuss transition of services. I looked at Lauren and Theo, my new team, and felt a surge of confidence. Shall we show them how it's really done? The answer was written in their matching smiles. The invisible woman was about to become impossible to ignore. Mrs. Miller is ready for you now, the receptionist announced, gesturing toward the corner office. 1 month had passed since I'd left Jake, and here I was, presenting to Miller Industries, this time under my own name. Lauren squeezed my arm supportively as we entered the office. Sonia, Mrs. Miller stood, extending her hand. I must say, your email certainly caught our attention, though not as much as your husband's. Interesting attempt at presenting your strategy last week. I kept my expression neutral. I apologize for any confusion during the transition. Confusion? Mrs. Miller laughed. The man couldn't explain basic concepts that were in his own proposal. That's when I knew something was wrong. She gestured to the chairs in front of her desk. Please sit. Tell me why I should trust you after this mess. I opened my laptop, pulling up the presentation I'd spent the last week refining. Because I'm going to show you exactly how I developed every aspect of this strategy, and then I'm going to improve it. 2 hours later, we walked out with a signed contract. Lauren was practically bouncing. Did you see her face when you broke down the market analysis? She couldn't believe Jake tried to pass that off as his work. My phone buzzed. A text from Zuriel. Emergency, come to my place now. What's wrong? I asked when we arrived at her apartment 20 minutes later. Zuriel pointed to her TV, where a local business news channel was running a story. Jake stood at a podium, Emerson by his side. Regret to announce that due to internal restructuring, Dunn Consulting will be scaling back operations temporarily, he was saying, looking haggard. We remain committed to our clients. They're losing accounts, Lauren whispered, scrolling through her phone. Not just Miller. 3 other major clients have jumped ship this week because Jake can't handle the workload without you, Zuriel added. And apparently, Emerson's attempts to step in are making things worse. My phone rang. Sophia. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. How could you do this to us? She demanded. Mom's talking about selling the beach house to keep the company afloat. I didn't do anything to you, Sophia. I just stopped doing everything for you. The Miller account was worth millions, and now they're gone, along with half our client base. They're gone because Jake couldn't deliver what he promised, I replied calmly. Maybe he should have thought about that before taking credit for my work all these years. Mom wants to sue you, Sophia warned. She's meeting with lawyers right now. Good luck with that. I ended the call, turning back to the TV where Jake was still speaking. Look at him, Lauren marveled. He really thought he could handle it all without you. He thought I would come crawling back, I corrected her. They all did. That's why they started with threats instead of apologies. My laptop pinged. An email from Theo. 3 more clients requesting meetings. Your reputation is spreading. How soon can you start expanding the team? Speaking of expanding, Lauren said, pulling out her tablet. Remember Thomas from accounting? He reached out. Says he's tired of Emerson's micromanaging and wants to join us. I smiled. Set up a meeting. They're going to call it poaching, Zuriel warned. They can call it whatever they want. I'm not stopping anyone from staying with them. I'm just offering a better option. My phone buzzed again. An email from Emerson's lawyer, marked urgent. I opened it, reading aloud. Cease and desist all communication with Dunn Consulting clients and employees. Immediate legal action. Damages? Lauren snorted. They do realize most of those clients are reaching out to us, right? They're desperate, Zuriel observed. The company's been running on your work for so long, they don't know how to function without it. Another news alert popped up on my phone. Dunn Consulting stock drops 30% amid client exodus. You know what the funny thing is, I said, watching Jake's strained face on TV. All they had to do was appreciate me. One birthday remembered, one honest acknowledgement of my contributions. But they didn't, Lauren finished, and now they're learning the hard way. My phone lit up with a new message from Mrs. Miller. Excellent presentation today. Looking forward to working with the real brains behind the operation. I showed the message to Lauren and Zuriel, feeling a surge of pride. No more hiding in the shadows. No more letting others take credit for my success. To the real brains, Zuriel raised her coffee mug in a toast. Lauren raised hers, too. And to the Dunns finally getting exactly what they deserve. I joined their toast, watching Jake's press conference end on TV. He looked lost, overwhelmed. Exactly how he should have felt all those years he was presenting my work as his own. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others. Sometimes it's simply about claiming what was yours all along. The cafe was crowded, but I spotted Emerson immediately. She sat ramrod straight at a corner table, her designer handbag placed precisely in front of her. 2 months had aged her noticeably. "Sonia," she said as I approached, "thank you for meeting me." I sat down, noting the slight tremor in her perfectly manicured hands. "You said it was important." "It's about Jake," she began, then paused as the waiter approached. "Just water, thank you." "Americano for me," I said, then turned back to her. "What about Jake?" "He's struggling. The business is falling apart. He's not sleeping, barely eating." She leaned forward. "We need you back." "You need me back," I corrected. "There's a difference. I'm willing to offer you a formal position, executive vice president, with full credit for your work going forward. And," she swallowed hard, "a public acknowledgement of your past contributions." My phone buzzed. Lauren sending our latest client acquisition numbers. I showed them to Emerson, watching her face fall. "Your company has lost 60% of its value," I said quietly. "Meanwhile, my division at Theo's firm has tripled in size. Why would I go back?" "Because it's your family," she snapped, then quickly composed herself. "We're your family, Sonia." "Family?" I laughed. "You've spent 7 years treating me like an unwanted house guest. You couldn't even remember my birthday." "That was a mistake." "No," I cut her off. "A mistake is buying the wrong gift. What you did, what all of you did, was show me exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy." The waiter brought our drinks. I took a sip of my coffee, watching Emerson's carefully constructed facade crack. "There's something else," she said finally. "Something Jake doesn't know I found." She pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. Inside were printed emails, dozens of them, between Jake and his ex-girlfriend from 2 years ago. "He was planning to leave you," Emerson said softly, "but then you landed the Patterson account, and he realized how valuable you were to the business." My hands shook as I read the messages. Jake discussing divorce plans, calculating how to protect the company, his ex offering to help him get rid of the dead weight. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I stopped him," Emerson said. I convinced him that you were an asset we couldn't lose. I protected you. I stared at her, realization dawning. You protected the business, not me. You knew I was doing all the work, and you were afraid of losing that. I made a choice that benefited everyone. You made a choice to keep me in the dark, working for a husband who wanted to divorce me, while you all took credit for my success. I stood up, gathering the emails. Thank you for these. They'll make excellent evidence in the divorce proceedings. Divorce? Emerson paled. But I'm offering you everything you wanted. Recognition, power, your name on the door. No, I said, pulling out my phone to show her our company website. I already have my name on a door, one I built myself. My phone buzzed again. A message from Jake. Mom told me she's meeting you. Please come home. We can fix this. I showed Emerson the message. Does he know you're showing me these emails? She looked away. I'm doing what needs to be done to save our company. Your company, I corrected her, and you're not trying to save it. You're trying to save yourself. How many loans have you personally guaranteed? Her silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I gathered my things. Thank you for the emails, Emerson, and for finally showing me the truth about my family. Wait, she called as I turned to leave. What are you going to do? I looked back at her, this woman who had orchestrated my imprisonment in a loveless marriage for the sake of profit. I'm going to do what you taught me to do, protect my interests. Outside, I called Lauren. Remember that expansion plan we discussed? Let's accelerate it and call our lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. Are you okay? She asked. I looked through the cafe window at Emerson, now frantically typing on her phone, probably warning Jake. I'm better than okay. I'm finally free. My phone lit up with another message, this one from Theo. Major investment firm wants to meet. They're impressed with our growth. I smiled, thinking of the emails in my bag. Sometimes the universe has a way of revealing truths at exactly the right moment. Emerson had tried to play her last card, but all she'd done was give me the final push I needed. Time to show them what the dead weight could really do. Jake was waiting outside my office building when I left work. 3 months since I'd last seen him, and he looked like he'd aged years. His usually immaculate suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt. We need to talk, he said, stepping forward, about the emails Mom showed you. There's nothing to talk about. I tried to walk past him, but he blocked my path. I never sent them, he blurted out. Those emails to Rebecca, I drafted them but never sent them. Mom found them in my deleted folder. I laughed, the sound harsh in the evening air. That's your defense? That you only thought about leaving me while taking credit for my work? I was scared, he admitted. You were becoming so essential to everything, and I felt redundant. Rebecca reached out at a weak moment. Mr. Dunn, Lauren's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway, phone in hand. Should I call security? Jake raised his hands. No need, I just want 5 minutes. Please, Sonia. I nodded to Lauren. It's okay, I'll handle this. We walked to the small park across the street, the same park where we'd once planned our future during lunch breaks, before I became his ghostwriter instead of his partner. The company's failing, he said, sitting heavily on a bench. Mom's leveraged everything trying to keep it afloat. The beach house, her retirement fund. I know, Sophia told me. We had an offer this morning, hostile takeover. He ran his hands through his hair. They know we're vulnerable without you. My phone buzzed. Theo sending the latest market analysis. Our firm had just landed another major client, one that used to be Jake's. What do you want from me, Jake? Come back, he said quickly. Not as my wife if you don't want to, but as a full partner. 50-50 split. Your name on everything. Like the Miller presentation? I asked sharply. Or the Patterson account? Or any of the other deals you took credit for? I was wrong, he admitted. I got used to the praise, to being the golden boy. It was easier to let everyone think I was the genius. While I worked until midnight, missing dinners, events, my own life. I know, God, I know. He turned to face me. But I loved you, Sonia. I still do. I pulled out my phone, opening the photos I'd saved of his emails to Rebecca. Dead weight was the term you used. Holding you back from your true potential. I was an idiot. No, I cut him off. You were honest. For once in our marriage, those emails showed exactly what you thought of me. A notification popped up on my phone. The investment firm Theo had mentioned, confirming tomorrow's meeting. They were interested in backing our expansion into international markets. You're really doing it, aren't you? Jake said, noticing my small smile. Building your own empire? The difference is, I'm building it honestly. Every success, every failure, they're really mine. And ours were really yours too, he said quietly. All of them. I just took the applause. Lauren appeared at the park entrance, pointing at her watch. We had a client dinner in 30 minutes. I have to go. I stood up. The divorce papers are with your lawyer. Sign them, Jake. Let me go. And the company? Keep it. Or sell it. That's not my problem anymore. He grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. What about your clients? The ones who've known us for years? They knew me. I corrected him, pulling free. They just didn't know it was me. Now they do. Sonia, please. You want to know the saddest part? I interrupted. If you had just remembered my birthday, if any of you had, I might still be there, still working in the shadows. But you couldn't even give me that one day. I'll make it right, he promised. Whatever it takes. You already did, I said, walking away. You showed me exactly what I'm worth, by showing me what you're worth without me. Lauren met me at the park entrance. Everything okay? I looked back at Jake, still sitting on the bench, head in his hands. The golden boy who'd built his success on my invisible foundation. Now he knew what it felt like to be the invisible one. Everything's perfect, I replied. What time is the dinner? 7, and Theo called. The investment firm's bringing their full board tomorrow. They're very interested in your vision for international expansion. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Sophia. Jake told me about the takeover offer. Please help us. I deleted it without responding. They'd had 7 years of my help. Now it was time to help myself. Let's go show them what visible leadership looks like, I said to Lauren, walking toward our waiting car. Behind us, Jake remained on the bench, watching his empire crumble while mine rose from its ashes. The boardroom fell silent as I finished my presentation. 6 months had passed since I'd left Jake, and here I was, presenting to the investment firm's board, this time as CEO of my own division. Impressive numbers, the lead investor said, studying the quarterly reports. You've managed to capture 40% of your previous company's market share in just half a year, along with expanding into 3 new sectors, Theo added proudly. My phone buzzed, a news alert about Dunn Consulting. I quickly scanned it under the table. Major family business faces bankruptcy. Dunn Consulting to auction office assets. Ms. Sonia, another board member leaned forward. There are rumors that your former company is facing liquidation. Any comments? Before I could answer, Lauren burst into the room. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, displaying a live video feed from outside Dunn Consulting's headquarters. Emerson stood at a podium, makeup perfectly applied despite her obvious distress. Regretfully announcing the closure of Dunn Consulting, she was saying. However, we have one final statement to make. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Sonia, if you're watching this, we were wrong, all of us. The success of this company was built on your work, your dedication, and your brilliance. I should have acknowledged that long ago. The board members watched intently as I set the tablet down. A bit late for recognition, isn't it? One of them commented. 6 months too late, I agreed, then turned back to my presentation. Now, about our international expansion plans. After the meeting, Lauren caught up with me in my office. They're offering us the full investment package. Theo's already reviewing the terms. Good, I nodded, then noticed her hesitation. What else? Jake's downstairs. Says he won't leave until you talk to him. I sighed, looking out my office window. Sure enough, Jake stood by the entrance, still in his suit but looking decidedly less polished than in his glory days. Send him up. Minutes later, Jake walked in, clutching a familiar leather portfolio, the one I'd used for years to prepare his presentations. I found this in my office while we were packing up, he said, placing it on my desk. All your original notes, your strategies. I never even read them properly before, just skimmed enough to present them as mine. Why are you here, Jake? The bankruptcy paperwork is being filed tomorrow. He sat heavily in the chair across from me. Mom's lost everything trying to save the company. Sophia's husband is talking about divorce because she guaranteed some of the loans. And you want me to help? Again? No, he said quietly. I want to apologize, really apologize, not just because we're desperate. He pulled out an envelope. I signed the divorce papers. You're free. My phone buzzed. Another news alert. Dunn family assets frozen pending investigation. Investigation? I looked up at Jake. Mom's creative accounting is coming to light, he admitted. Turns out she's been hiding losses for years, even before you left. That's why she pushed me so hard to keep you around. You were the only thing keeping us profitable. Lauren appeared in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Miller is on line 1. Says it's urgent. I picked up the phone, putting it on speaker. Mrs. Miller, what can I do for you? I just watched Emerson's press conference, she said. I wanted you to know, every client who moved their business to you, we talk. We all knew you were the real talent. We were just waiting for you to realize it too. Jake flinched at her words. After ending the call, I opened the leather portfolio. Inside were years of my work, my ideas, my success, all credited to others. You know what the worst part was? I said to Jake. I would have shared the credit. If you just acknowledged me as a partner instead of a prop, I would have stayed. I know that now. He stood up. For what it's worth, I really am proud of what you've built here. You deserve it all. As he reached the door, he turned back. Oh, and Sonia, happy birthday. It's today, right? I finally remembered. I waited until he left before opening my desk drawer, pulling out the birthday card Zuriel had given me that morning. Inside, she'd written, "To the woman who turned invisibility into invincibility." My phone lit up with a message from Theo. Board approved the full investment. Ready to go global? Lauren poked her head in. Should I send out the press release about the investment? I looked at the leather portfolio, then at the signed divorce papers, finally at the news headlines about the Dunn family's fall from grace. Yes, I said, standing up, but add one line. This expansion is dedicated to every person who's ever been invisible in their own success story. Lauren smiled. Perfect. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about building yourself up so high that they can't help but see you, even if they're looking up from rock bottom. And sometimes the greatest birthday gift you can give yourself is the power to write your own story. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee from the new cafe across the street as I walked into my office building. The lobby's wall-mounted TV displayed the business news. Rising star CEO named Business Leader of the Year. They used your good photo, Lauren teased, falling into step beside me. The one where you're not smiling like you're plotting someone's downfall. I never plot downfalls, I protested. They manage that perfectly well on their own. My phone buzzed. Sophia requesting a meeting. Again. She's persistent, Lauren noted, reading over my shoulder. Third time this week. Fourth, I corrected. She cornered me at the grocery store yesterday. The elevator opened to reveal Theo waiting in my office. Have you seen today's business journal? He handed me the magazine. There on the cover was a photo of me standing in front of our new headquarters, arms crossed, looking exactly like someone plotting downfalls. The headline read, "The Invisible Empire, How One Woman Turned Corporate Shadows into Spotlight Success." Page 16, Theo said, grinning. I flipped to it and found a familiar face. Emerson being escorted from court in handcuffs. The article detailed her conviction for financial fraud and embezzlement. Hard to believe she thought she could hide it forever, Lauren mused. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Jake. Mom's sentenced to 3 years. Sophia's divorce is final. I'm moving to Seattle for a fresh start. Thank you for not pressing additional charges. Speaking of Sophia, I said, what do you think she wants? Why don't you ask her yourself? Lauren pointed through the glass walls to where Sophia stood by the reception desk, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. I nodded to Lauren. Send her in. Sophia looked different, less polished, more human. She perched on the edge of the visitor's chair like she might flee at any moment. I got a job offer, she blurted out. A real one, entry-level marketing position. That's good? It's at one of your competitors' firms. She twisted her hands together. I wanted to make sure, I know how it might look. Sophia, I interrupted, are you asking my permission to take a job? I'm asking if you'll give me a reference, she whispered. Everyone knows I'm toxic now because of Mom's scandal, but they also know I'm your former sister-in-law. Your word carries weight. I studied her, this woman who'd watched her mother and brother take advantage of me for years, but also the woman who'd just lost everything and was trying to rebuild. Why should I help you? Because you taught me something, she said, straightening her spine. When everything fell apart, when Mom went to jail and Jake ran away, I realized I'd been living in their shadow just like you were. The difference is, you did something about it. My phone lit up with another message, Mrs. Miller asking about our upcoming charity gala. The same gala the Dunns used to host, where I'd always been seated at the back. The job, I asked Sophia, what exactly would you be doing? Assistant marketing coordinator, basic stuff, social media, event planning. And you'd be okay starting at the bottom? No shortcuts, no family connections? She nodded firmly. I want to earn something for myself, like you did. I opened my laptop, started typing. I'm sending your potential employer an email. I'm going to tell them exactly who you are and what your family did. Sophia's face fell. And then, I continued, I'm going to tell them how you came here today, asking for nothing but a chance to prove yourself, just like I once needed. Tears welled in her eyes. Really? Really? I hit send. But Sophia, don't waste this chance. I won't, she promised, standing up. At the door, she paused. You know, Jake kept your birthday card on his desk, the one you left the night you walked out. I think he finally understood what he lost wasn't just the business. After she left, Lauren brought in coffee. That was generous of you. It was strategic, I corrected her. Sometimes the best way to maintain power is to help others find theirs. My phone buzzed one final time. Zuriel sending a photo of the birthday cake she'd ordered for our celebration dinner tonight. The icing read, "To the woman who made herself impossible to forget." I smiled, looking out at the city skyline. My skyline now. The invisible woman had built her empire, not by tearing others down, but by rising so high they had no choice but to see her. Lauren, I called out, let's move that charity gala to the main ballroom and make sure everyone can see who's hosting it now. Sometimes the best endings aren't about revenge at all. They're about becoming exactly who you were meant to be, visible, powerful, and impossible to ignore.
The antique jewelry box felt unusually light in my hands. That was my first clue something was wrong. My grandmother's emerald necklace, the pearl earrings she wore at her wedding, the sapphire ring passed down 3 generations. All of them gone. In their place lay a hastily scribbled note in my mother-in-law's unmistakable handwriting. Had to borrow these. Will explain later. Karen. I'm Raylin, and this was the moment my perfect family facade began to crack. My hands trembled as I dialed Karen's number. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. Darling, I was just thinking about you. Karen's syrupy voice came through the speaker. Where is my grandmother's jewelry? I kept my voice steady, though my knuckles were white from gripping the phone. Oh, that. She paused. Well, you never wear them anyway. They were just collecting dust in that old box. Karen, where are they? I had some financial difficulties. You know how these things go. The jewelry fetched a good price. The room spun. You sold them? Without asking me? Now, dear, don't be dramatic. They were just trinkets. I grabbed my car keys. I'm coming over. That's not necessary. I hung up and drove to her house, breaking at least 3 traffic laws. Karen opened the door before I could knock, wearing her signature pearl necklace. Not my grandmother's, of course. Hers was probably genuine. Raylin, you're overreacting, she said as I brushed past her into the living room. Noah agrees with me that you never appreciated those pieces properly. I whirled around. You talked to Noah about this? Of course. He's my son. He understands that family helps family. Those weren't yours to sell. My voice cracked. That emerald necklace was the last thing my grandmother gave me before she died. Karen waved her hand dismissively. And now it's helping family. Isn't that what your grandmother would have wanted? Don't you dare pretend you know what she would have wanted. I stepped closer. How much? Excuse me? How much did you get for them? Karen straightened her blouse. 8,000. I needed it for what? Another spa weekend? A new handbag? I had debts to settle. She sniffed. Really, Raylin, this attitude is exactly why Noah worried about letting you keep such valuable pieces. My phone buzzed. Noah. Where are you? Mum called saying you're acting crazy. I laughed bitterly. Did she tell you she sold my grandmother's jewelry? Yeah, she mentioned that. He sounded annoyed. Look, they were just sitting there. Mom needed the money, and you never even wore them. They were mine, Noah. Mine. They're just things, Ray. Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. I looked at Karen, who wore a small, satisfied smile. In that moment, something inside me hardened. You're right, I said quietly. They're just things. And I'm just your wife, right? Just the girl who gave up her career to support your promotion. Just the woman who handles all the family events while your mother takes credit. Just the person whose inheritance apparently belongs to everyone except her. Ray, I'll be home later. I hung up and faced Karen. You know what the funny thing is? My grandmother always said jewelry tells stories. Each piece carries memories, moments, legacies. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? To you, they're just things to pawn when you're short on cash. Karen's smile faltered. Now you're just being petty. No, I'm being clear. For the first time in 5 years, I'm seeing everything clearly. I walked to the door, then turned back. You know what else my grandmother taught me? That karma has a way of coming full circle. Remember that, Karen. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you something. I met her eyes. You think you've won because you've taken my grandmother's legacy, but you've just given me something far more valuable, motivation. To do what? She laughed nervously. To show you, Noah, and everyone else exactly what I'm capable of. I opened the door. You've always treated my passion for jewelry design as a cute little hobby. Time to change that narrative. As I drove home, my mind was already racing with plans. Karen thought she'd broken me by selling my grandmother's jewelry. Instead, she'd lit a fire. I pulled out my phone and called my best friend Andrea. Hey, remember that business idea we talked about last month? The one you said I should pursue? I took a deep breath. I'm ready, and I know exactly where to start. The jewelry might be gone, but my grandmother's real legacy, her creativity, her determination, her spirit, that lived in me. And I was about to make sure everyone remembered that. You should have seen her face when I told her about karma, I said, sprawled on Andrea's couch, nursing my second glass of wine. Like she couldn't decide whether to laugh or call security. Andrea sat cross-legged on the floor, her laptop open to a business plan template. Karen's always underestimated you. But seriously, Ray, what's the actual plan here? Because revenge through success sounds great, but we need details. I pulled out my sketchbook, flipping to the designs I'd been too afraid to show anyone. Remember how I used to sketch my grandmother's pieces? I've been developing my own collections based on them, modern takes on classic designs. These are incredible, Andrea leaned forward, pointing to a necklace design. Is this inspired by the emerald piece Karen sold? Yeah, I smiled. But see how I've reimagined it? Instead of one central stone, it's a cascade of smaller gems, more wearable, more modern. And more marketable, Andrea added, typing furiously. We could start with an online presence, build a following on Instagram, showcase your process. The doorbell rang. Andrea checked her phone and grinned. Perfect timing. I invited someone you need to meet. She opened the door to reveal a sharp-dressed man in his 40s. Raylin, this is Daniel Oliver. He's an investor who specializes in emerging luxury brands. I shot Andrea a panicked look, but she just winked. Andrea's been telling me about your work, Daniel said, settling into an armchair. She mentioned you're looking to turn your designs into a proper business. I straightened up, suddenly very aware of my wine glass. I am. Though I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting to pitch to an investor tonight. Good. Rehearsed pitches are boring. He gestured to my sketchbook. Mind if I take a look? For the next hour, we talked designs, market positioning, and production costs. Daniel asked tough questions, but his eyes lit up at several of my sketches. There's something here, he said finally. Your designs tell stories. That's rare in this market. Most new designers chase trends. You're creating narratives. That's what jewelry should do, I said. Every piece should mean something. Speaking of meaning, Andrea interjected, tell him about your grandmother's collection. I hesitated, then shared the story of Karen's betrayal. Daniel's expression darkened. So you're planning to recreate the lost pieces? Not exactly. I'm using them as inspiration to create something new. Something that honors the past but looks to the future. I pulled out my phone, showing him photos of the original jewelry. See this ring? Instead of copying it, I'm taking its essence, the way the sapphire caught light from 3 angles, and translating that into a modern design. With a built-in marketing story, Daniel nodded. The phoenix rising from the ashes narrative. People love that. This isn't just about marketing. Of course not, he cut in. It's personal. That's what makes it powerful. But if you want to succeed, really succeed, you need to think bigger than revenge. Andrea leaned forward. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that selling a few pieces online isn't enough. You need a launch event, something that puts your brand on the map. He paused. Something that forces certain people to acknowledge your success. Like a fancy dinner party. Andrea's eyes sparkled. Where Raylin could debut her collection to potential buyers and, I don't know, invite her entire family. I caught her meaning and couldn't help smiling. That would be quite an event. I'll tell you what, Daniel said, standing. Develop a proper business plan. Show me production costs, marketing strategy, everything. If I like what I see, I might be interested in backing your launch. After he left, Andrea poured more wine. Well, it's happening fast, I admitted. This morning I was just angry. Now we're talking investors and launch parties. Sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. She grabbed her laptop. Now, let's work on that business plan. We have a mother-in-law to impress. I pulled out my phone to check the time and saw 3 missed calls from Noah. I silenced it. "You'll have to talk to him eventually," Andrea said softly. "I know, but right now I need to focus on this." I opened my sketchbook to a fresh page. Besides, actions speak louder than words, and I'm about to make quite a statement. As we worked into the night, my grandmother's words echoed in my mind. Jewelry isn't just about beauty, dear. It's about power. The power to mark moments, to tell stories, to transform yourself. Karen thought she'd stripped me of my inheritance. Instead, she'd given me the push I needed to claim my own power. And this time, I wouldn't let anyone take it away. The sound of metal hitting metal filled my converted garage workshop as I carefully shaped a delicate silver wire. 3 weeks had passed since meeting Daniel, and I'd barely left the space except for essentials. "Honey," Noah's voice interrupted my concentration. "It's midnight. Are you coming to bed?" I didn't look up from my work. "Almost done with this piece." He sighed, leaning against my workbench. "You've been out here every night this week. This hobby is getting out of hand." The word hobby made my hand still. "It's not a hobby, Noah. It's a business." "Come on, Ray, you can't seriously think—" "I have an investor interested." I finally met his eyes. A real one. Daniel Oliver. Noah's expression shifted from dismissive to concerned. "You're meeting with strange investors now. Does Mum know about this?" "Why would your mother need to know about my business decisions?" "Because she has experience. She ran that boutique for years. The one she had to sell to pay off her gambling debts." The words shot out before I could stop them. Noah's face reddened. "That's not fair. She had a rough patch that she solved by selling my inheritance." I turned back to my work. "And no, I haven't told her about Daniel. I don't need her sabotaging this too." "You're being paranoid." He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, if you need money for your project, we can discuss it. But getting involved with outside investors is risky." I held up the piece I was working on, a pendant inspired by my grandmother's emerald necklace, but with my own twist. Instead of a single stone, I'd created a cascade of tiny emeralds set in a modern, asymmetrical design. "What do you see when you look at this?" Noah shrugged. "It's nice. Pretty." "Pretty," I repeated. "Your mother saw my grandmother's jewelry as just pretty things to pawn. You see my work as just a pretty hobby. Neither of you actually see me." The doorbell rang, surprising us both at this late hour. "That's probably Malia," Noah said. "She mentioned stopping by." I followed him to the door, where his sister stood with 2 bottles of wine and an apologetic smile. "Sorry it's so late. I was in the neighborhood and saw your lights on." She breezed past us into the kitchen. "Noah, be a dear and grab some glasses." As Noah went for wine glasses, Malia turned to me. "So, little sister, rumor has it you're starting a business." My guard went up immediately. "Who told you that?" "Oh, you know how word travels in this family." She smiled sweetly. "Mum's worried you're making rash decisions because of the jewelry situation." "The jewelry situation," I repeated flatly. "You mean when she stole and sold my inheritance?" "Ancient history." Malia waved her hand. "Family forgives. But this business venture, are you sure you're ready for something like that? The market's so competitive." Noah returned with the glasses. "That's what I was just saying." "I mean, look what happened to Mum's boutique," Malia continued, "and she had years of experience." "Your mother's boutique failed because she gambled away the profits," I said quietly. "Not because of market conditions." Malia's smile tightened. "Careful, Raylin. Family dynamics can shift very quickly when people start throwing around accusations." "Is that a threat? A friendly warning? From someone who's been in this family longer than you?" She sipped her wine. "Mum's protective of Noah. She won't like you risking your joint finances on some jewelry-making scheme." I laughed. "You know what? I don't care what Karen likes anymore. And my finances are none of her business." "Ray," Noah started, but I cut him off. "No, I'm done letting your family dictate my choices." I headed back to my workshop. "Lock up when you leave, Malia." Behind me, I heard Malia's stage whisper, "Noah, you need to get this under control. Mum's really worried about her." In my workshop, I pulled out my phone and texted Andrea, "Family ambush tonight. They're already trying to stop me." Her reply came instantly. "Perfect. The more they underestimate you, the better. BTW, Daniel loved your business plan. Meeting tomorrow at 10. I smiled, picking up my tools again. Let them think I was being rash. Let them whisper their warnings and concerns. Every doubt they expressed just fueled my determination. I worked through the night, completing 3 more pieces for my collection. Each one told a story, not just of what was lost, but of what I was becoming. And soon, very soon, they'd all see exactly what I was capable of. As dawn broke, I heard Noah leave for work without saying goodbye. That would have hurt once. Now it just reminded me why I needed to succeed. Not just for revenge, but for myself. "Your Instagram following has tripled in the last 2 weeks," Daniel said, scrolling through my social media metrics. "The behind-the-scenes videos of your crafting process are especially popular." We sat in his downtown office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows. 2 months had passed since our first meeting, and my brand was gaining traction faster than I'd imagined. "The pre-orders are exceeding expectations too," I added, pulling up the sales data on my tablet. "Especially for the Phoenix collection." Daniel smiled. "Interesting name choice." Rising from the ashes seemed appropriate. His phone buzzed. The smile faded as he read the message. "We might have a problem. Someone's been calling my office, asking questions about your business." My stomach dropped. "Karen?" "She's persistent, I'll give her that. Called 3 times yesterday, claiming she's your business partner." "She's not." "I know." He held up a hand. "But she's also been reaching out to other potential investors, suggesting your business might not be legitimate." Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a text from Andrea. "Emergency. Karen's at the workshop." "I have to go." I grabbed my bag. "She's at my studio." "Want me to come with you?" "No, I need to handle this myself." I broke several speed limits getting to my workshop. Karen's luxury SUV was parked outside, and Andrea stood guard at the door, arms crossed. "She just showed up demanding to see your workspace," Andrea said as I approached. I told her it was private property. Karen spotted me and strutted over, designer handbag swinging. "Raylin, darling, your friend here seems confused about family boundaries." "There are no family boundaries anymore, Karen. You crossed them all when you sold my jewelry." "Still dwelling on that? I thought you'd moved past it." She peered around me at the workshop door. "I'm here to help, actually. I heard you're starting a little business, and with my experience..." "Your experience in running a boutique into the ground?" Her smile tightened. "I'm trying to prevent you from making expensive mistakes. These investors you're meeting with, do you really know who they are?" "Better than they know you, apparently." I stepped closer. "Stop calling Daniel's office. Stop spreading rumors. Stop interfering." "I'm protecting my son's interests. Your reckless spending on this hobby could affect his financial future." "I haven't spent a dime of Noah's money. Every investment has been my own." "Your own?" She laughed. "Where exactly did this money come from?" "From selling my car, from my savings, from the jewelry pieces I've already sold." I pulled out my phone, showing her my brand's website. "See these pre-order numbers? That's all me. No help from family required." Karen's face darkened as she scrolled through the sales figures. "These designs, they look familiar." "They should. They're inspired by the pieces you stole." "I did not. Save it." I took my phone back. "You know what's funny? If you hadn't sold my grandmother's jewelry, I might never have found the courage to start this business. So really, I should thank you." "Noah won't stand for this." "Noah doesn't have a say in my business decisions." I opened my workshop door. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have orders to fill." "This isn't over," Karen called as I went inside. "Family dinner on Sunday, we'll discuss this properly." I turned back. "Actually, I'm hosting a dinner party of my own soon. You'll all be invited to see exactly what this little business has become. After Karen left, Andrea followed me into the workshop. You know she's going straight to Noah, right? Let her. I picked up a half-finished necklace. I'm done hiding my success to make them comfortable. My phone buzzed with a text from Noah. Mom's upset, says you were disrespectful. We need to talk. I showed Andrea the message. Right on cue. What are you going to do? I opened my calendar and selected a date 2 weeks away. Book that dinner party. It's time everyone saw the truth, all at once. Drama with a side of karma. Andrea grinned. I'm in. I started crafting the invitation list. Karen and her husband, Noah, Malia and her husband, Daniel, and several prominent local jewelry buyers. The pieces from my Phoenix collection would be displayed throughout the dining room, each one a testament to what Karen's betrayal had sparked. They think they're coming to a family dinner, I said, finalizing the guest list. They have no idea they're about to attend the launch of the season's most talked-about jewelry brand. Andrea squeezed my shoulder. Your grandmother would be so proud. I touched the workshop key hanging around my neck, the last gift my grandmother gave me. She always said success is the best revenge. Time to prove her right. 3 days before the dinner party, I stood in my workshop, carefully arranging the Phoenix collection display. Each piece told part of my story, from loss to rebirth. The centerpiece was a necklace that echoed my grandmother's emerald piece, but with a modern twist that made it uniquely mine. My phone chimed with an anonymous email. Thought you might find these interesting. Attached were screenshots of Karen's text messages to various family members over the years. My heart raced as I scrolled through them. Had to borrow from Noah's college fund, he'll never know. Malia's husband almost caught me taking from their joint account. Close call. That silly girl Raylin trusts me with everything. Too easy. The timestamp showed years of manipulation and financial abuse. I forwarded the email to Andrea. Her response was immediate. Holy shit. Who sent these? No idea, I texted back, but they're real. The college fund text matches exactly when Noah had to take out extra loans. The workshop door opened, and Noah walked in, the first time he'd visited since our fight. You've been busy, he said, looking around at the displays. That's what happens when you turn a hobby into a business. He picked up one of the pieces, a bracelet inspired by my grandmother's pearl set. These are actually really good, Ray. Try not to sound so surprised. He set the bracelet down carefully. Mom's worried about the dinner party. Of course she is. She thinks you're planning something. I met his eyes. She's right. Ray, please, can't we just have a nice family dinner without drama? Like the nice family dynamic we had when your mother sold my inheritance. Or the nice family support I got when starting my business. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is this. I showed him the screenshots. Your college fund, Noah. She gambled away your college fund and let you take out loans to cover it. His face paled as he read. Where did you get these? Does it matter? They're real and you know it. I took my phone back. Your mother has been stealing from this family for years. The only difference is, I'm the first one to stand up to her. I need to think. He headed for the door, then paused. The dinner party. What are you planning? Come and see. I turned back to my display. Oh, and Noah, wear something nice. There will be photographers. After he left, I received another anonymous email. This one contained bank statements, showing Karen had recently taken out 3 new credit cards in Noah's name. My phone rang. Andrea. I know who sent the emails, she said without greeting. Malia's husband works at the bank. He's been gathering evidence of Karen's fraud for months. Why would he help me? Apparently, Karen's been stealing from their accounts too. He's fed up. I sat down heavily. This is bigger than I thought. Use it, Andrea said firmly. The dinner party isn't just about your jewelry now, it's about exposing the truth. Daniel's bringing fashion journalists and buyers, I said. Karen won't be able to dismiss this as family drama with the press there. Speaking of press, your latest Instagram post hit 10,000 likes. The teaser video for the Phoenix collection is going viral. I smiled, remembering Karen's dismissal of my little business. Perfect timing. A text came through from Malia. We need to talk. Coffee tomorrow. Malia wants to meet, I told Andrea. Think her husband told her about the evidence? Only one way to find out. Just be careful. I confirmed the coffee meeting with Malia, then returned to my display preparation. The pieces needed to be perfect, each one a symbol of everything Karen had tried to destroy. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Major fashion blog picked up the story of your launch. They love the rising from betrayal angle. Karen's actions might actually help sales. I laughed at the irony. By trying to suppress my dreams, Karen had given them wings. By stealing my inheritance, she'd forced me to create my own legacy. The final piece I placed was a ring, a simple band with a hidden inscription, "From ashes, rise." I'd made it as a reminder to myself, but now it felt like a battle cry. 2 more days until the dinner party. 2 more days until Karen and everyone else saw exactly what their underestimation had created. The invitations had gone out, the press was interested, and my collection was ready. Let Karen worry. Let her scheme and plot. This time, I wasn't the naive daughter-in-law hoping for approval. I was a businesswoman about to launch a brand built on the very betrayal meant to break me, and I was ready for war. The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy as Malia slid into the seat across from me. Her usual polished appearance seemed slightly frayed at the edges. I know what you're planning, she said without preamble. The dinner party isn't just a family gathering. Never was. I stirred my coffee. Question is, why are you really here? Malia glanced around before pulling out her phone. Have you seen this? She showed me a series of bank statements. My husband works at the bank and he found, Karen's been stealing from you too, I finished. I know. $6,000, Raylin, from our children's savings account. Her hands shook slightly. She said she was helping us invest it. Instead, she lost it gambling. Malia's eyes welled up. I defended her. When she sold your grandmother's jewelry, I actually defended her. You weren't the only one she fooled. No, but I was the one who helped her do it. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She asked me to distract you that day, keep you busy while she got into your house. I thought she was planning a surprise, not... The revelation hit like a physical blow. You helped her steal my inheritance? I'm sorry. Malia reached for my hand, but I pulled back. That's why I'm here. I want to make it right. How? I have evidence. Years of it. Bank statements, text messages, recordings of her admitting to taking money from all of us. She pulled out a USB drive. Everything's here. I stared at the small device. Why give this to me now? Because you're the only one brave enough to stand up to her. Malia's voice hardened. And because she's trying to stop your dinner party. What do you mean? She's calling everyone on the guest list, telling them it's cancelled. She's even contacted some journalists, feeding them false stories about your business. My phone buzzed, Daniel calling. Excuse me, I need to take this. Raylin, Daniel's voice was tense. We have a situation. Karen's been contacting my other clients, telling them I'm investing in a fraudulent business. Can she hurt us? Not legally, but she's creating noise we don't need right before the launch. He paused. There's more. She's trying to get the venue to cancel our booking for tomorrow night. I felt Malia watching me. Let her try. I have something that might help. After ending the call, I held up the USB drive. What exactly is on here? Everything. Malia's eyes gleamed, including proof that she's been forging Noah's signature on loan documents. The latest one was just last week. My phone lit up with texts from Andrea. Major fashion blogger confirmed for tomorrow. Also, Noah's been trying to reach you. I have to go, I told Malia. But thank you for this. Wait, she grabbed my arm. I want to help tomorrow night, really help. Let me be part of exposing her. I studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. Why should I trust you? Because she stole from my children. Malia's voice cracked. And because you were right about karma. It's time she faced hers. Back at my workshop, I found Noah waiting. "The bank called," he said quietly. "About credit cards I never applied for." "I know." "Did you know before? Is that what tomorrow night is really about?" I opened my laptop, plugged in Malia's USB drive. "See for yourself." For the next hour, Noah sat in silence, reading through years of his mother's deceptions. His face grew paler with each document. "All this time," he whispered. "Every time I defended her." "Noah, no, let me finish." He stood up, pacing. "I chose her side, over and over. Even when she sold your grandmother's jewelry, I chose her side." "Yes, you did. The dinner party tomorrow. Do what you need to do." He met my eyes. "I won't stop you anymore." After he left, Andrea arrived with final preparations for tomorrow. "The press is confirmed, the buyers are excited, and the collection is ready," she said, checking her list. "Now we just need to stop Karen from—" "She can't stop this," I interrupted, holding up the USB drive. "Not anymore." My phone chimed with a text from Karen. "Darling, about tomorrow night. Perhaps we should postpone. Family matters should be discussed privately." I smiled, thinking of the evidence in my possession, the press waiting to cover the event, and the collection that would tell my story to the world. "Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow," I texted back. "Don't be late." The pieces were all in place. Tomorrow night, Karen would learn that some family matters deserve to be public after all. The private dining room at La Maison gleamed with strategic lighting, each piece of my collection displayed like precious artifacts in a museum. Fashion bloggers circulated with champagne flutes, their phones already capturing every detail. Daniel worked the room, chatting with potential buyers, while Andrea directed the photographer's attention to key pieces. "They're here," Malia whispered, appearing at my side. Karen swept in with her usual dramatic flair, faltering slightly at the sight of the press. Noah followed, his face unreadable. The rest of the family trickled in behind them, murmuring at the unexpected setup. "Raylin, darling," Karen's voice carried across the room. "There seems to be some confusion. I thought this was a family dinner." "Oh, it is." I gestured to the displays, along with the launch of my jewelry brand. "Please, everyone take your seats." Karen's eyes narrowed at the place cards, finding herself positioned directly across from me. Perfect view of everything to come. "Before we begin," I stood, addressing the room, "I'd like to share a story about legacy." "Raylin," Karen warned, but I continued. "6 months ago, my mother-in-law sold my grandmother's jewelry collection without my permission." Cameras clicked as Karen's face reddened. She claimed it was just gathering dust. What she didn't realize was that she gave me something far more valuable than those pieces. She gave me motivation. Daniel stepped forward. "Which is why I'm proud to announce my company's significant investment in Raylin's Phoenix collection. A collection," I added, "inspired by the very pieces that were stolen from me." "I did not steal," Karen started. "No," I nodded to Malia, who connected her laptop to the room's projector. "Let's talk about stealing, Karen." The screen filled with bank statements, text messages, and loan documents. Karen's face went from red to white as her years of financial manipulation displayed for all to see. "That's private family business," she hissed, "like Noah's college fund that you gambled away." I clicked to the next slide. "Or the credit cards you opened in his name last week." Gasps filled the room. A fashion blogger's fingers flew across her phone screen. "Noah," Karen turned to her son, "tell them this is ridiculous." "I've seen the evidence, Mom." Noah's voice was quiet but firm. "All of it. The Phoenix collection," I continued, my voice steady, "isn't just about beautiful jewelry. It's about rising from betrayal. Each piece tells a story of transformation." I lifted the necklace I was wearing, my modern version of the emerald piece. This design, for instance, was inspired by my grandmother's necklace, the one you sold for $8,000. I smiled at Karen. "It just sold for $20,000 in pre-orders." "Impossible," Karen whispered. "Actually," Daniel stepped in, "we've had to start a waiting list. Your daughter-in-law's designs are the talk of the industry. And speaking of industry, I gestured to the displays, every piece here represents something you tried to take from me, but instead of breaking me, you made me stronger. Karen stood abruptly. This is a setup, a vindictive attempt to... To what? Malia interrupted. To expose the truth? Like how you stole from my children's savings account. The room fell silent. Karen looked around wildly, finding no allies. I have built something beautiful from your betrayal, I said softly. While you were trying to stop this dinner party, I was signing contracts with 3 major retailers. While you were spreading rumors about my business, I was being featured in fashion magazines. You ungrateful. The police have been notified about the credit card fraud, Noah cut in, and the bank is investigating all suspicious activities. Karen's composure finally cracked. I am your mother. Everything I did was for this family. No, I picked up a small box from the table. Everything you did was for yourself. But I want to thank you, Karen. Without your betrayal, I might never have found my strength. I opened the box, revealing a delicate ring, the one inscribed with, "From ashes, rise." This piece isn't for sale. It's a reminder that sometimes our greatest pain leads to our greatest triumph. The fashion bloggers were practically vibrating with excitement. Daniel was already fielding calls from buyers. And Karen stood frozen, watching her carefully constructed world crumble. You can't do this to me, she whispered. You did this to yourself, Malia replied. We're just finally telling the truth. As Karen fled the room, Noah reached for my hand under the table. I squeezed it briefly before standing to address the press. They had questions about my inspiration, my designs, my future plans. But the real story, the one about betrayal, resilience, and rising from the ashes, had already written itself in the tears streaming down Karen's face as she ran from the truth she could no longer hide. The morning sun streamed through my workshop windows as I carefully packaged the last online order. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the dinner party. Journalists, buyers, and countless messages from people sharing their own stories of family betrayal and triumph. Your latest Instagram post hit 100,000 likes, Andrea announced, walking in with coffee. The video of Karen storming out might have helped. Did you see the comments on the Phoenix Collection feature? All 5,000 of them. She grinned. My favorite was, Karen got served karma with a side of success. The workshop door opened again. Noah stood there, looking uncertain. The police want to talk to Mom again, he said, stepping inside. They found more evidence of fraud. How are you holding up? I asked. Better than her. He picked up one of my newest designs, a bracelet that seemed broken, but was intentionally crafted that way, the fragments held together by gold threading. Dad's filing for divorce. Turns out she's been stealing from him too. Andrea squeezed my shoulder. I'll give you 2 a minute. After she left, Noah traced the gold threading on the bracelet. This is beautiful. The way you made the broken pieces part of the design instead of hiding them. Sometimes broken things make the most interesting art. Like broken families. His voice cracked slightly. Noah. No, let me finish. He set down the bracelet. I've been thinking about what you said that night, about rising from betrayal. I watched you turn Mom's actions into something powerful while I just enabled her. You were loyal. That's not a bad thing. Loyalty shouldn't be blind. He met my eyes. I failed you, Ray. When she sold your grandmother's jewelry, when she tried to stop your business, every time she hurt you, I chose her side. Yes, you did. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I see it now. All of it. He pulled out an envelope. This is everything I inherited from my grandfather. It's not much, but it might help track down some of your grandmother's pieces. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Daniel, turn on Channel 7 now, he said without greeting. I grabbed the remote for the workshop's small TV. Karen's face filled the screen, standing outside the police station. Sources say Karen Rogers, local socialite, is facing multiple charges of fraud and financial abuse, the reporter announced. Several family members have come forward with evidence. Noah switched off the TV. She did this to herself. Maybe we all did, I said quietly. We all played our parts, her manipulating, you enabling, me staying quiet, until we didn't. The workshop door opened again. Malia entered, carrying a familiar jewelry box. Found this in Mum's storage unit, she said, placing it on my workbench. There's more, but I thought you should have this first. With trembling hands, I opened the box. Inside lay my grandmother's sapphire ring, the one piece Karen claimed she'd sold to an overseas buyer. She kept it. My voice wavered. She kept all of it, Malia said. The emerald necklace, the pearl earrings, everything. We'll bring them back piece by piece. I slipped the ring on my finger, its familiar weight both comforting and different. I wasn't the same person who last wore it. What happens now? Noah asked. Now? I picked up the broken but beautiful bracelet. Now we do what this piece represents. We acknowledge the breaks, strengthen the weak points, and create something new. Together. He sounded hopeful. That depends. I met his gaze. Are you ready to see me, really see me, without Karen's influence? Yes. No hesitation. Then yes, together. I handed him the bracelet. Starting with you wearing this to my first major runway show next week. His eyes widened. Runway show? Daniel's arranged for the Phoenix collection to feature in Fashion Week. I smiled. Turns out Karma looks good on the catwalk. Malia laughed, then grew serious. Mom's going to hate watching your success from her jail cell. Maybe, I touched my grandmother's ring, or maybe she'll finally learn what I did. That sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of finding yourself. The morning sun caught the sapphire, sending blue light dancing across my workbench. Each sparkle reminded me of my grandmother's words. Jewelry tells stories, dear. Make sure yours is worth telling. Looking at my brother and sister-in-law, at my thriving business, at the ring I'd thought lost forever, I knew my story was just beginning. And this time, I was writing it on my own terms. Now, I picked up my tools. Who's ready to help me design something new?
The first time my brother-in-law Bradley called me just a housewife, I smiled and brushed it off. The 100th time? I started plotting his downfall. I'm Edith, and until last month, I was the perfect example of what Bradley liked to call living the easy life. You know the type. Organizing school runs, managing household finances, coordinating family events, and keeping everyone's lives running smoothly while making it look effortless. Another lovely dinner, Edith. Bradley announced at our monthly family gathering, dabbing his mouth with a napkin. Must be nice having all day to perfect your cooking skills while some of us are out there in the real world. I caught my sister Rose's eye across the table. She gave me that look. The one that said, I can't believe you're letting him get away with this again. Actually, I replied, maintaining my smile, I spent most of today helping the school board secure funding for a new STEM program. But yes, the pot roast did turn out well, didn't it? Bradley waved his hand dismissively. Oh, volunteer work. Cute. Try managing a multi-million-dollar company sometime. Now that's real stress. My husband Heidi shifted uncomfortably in his chair but said nothing. Typical. He never could stand up to his older brother. Speaking of stress, Bradley's wife Andrea chimed in. Bradley just closed another major deal. What was it, honey? 20 million? 22, Bradley corrected, puffing up like a peacock. But who's counting? He laughed at his own joke while I fought the urge to throw my wine in his face. Mom, can I be excused? My daughter whispered, clearly sensing the tension. I nodded, watching her escape to the safety of her room. You know, Edith, Bradley continued, swirling his expensive whiskey. You really should thank your lucky stars Heidi makes enough for you to stay home. In today's economy, most women don't have that luxury. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. Probably Sierra, my best friend who'd made it big in corporate consulting. The irony wasn't lost on me that while Bradley was patronizing me about the business world, I was ignoring calls from one of the most influential women in our city's financial district. I am grateful, I said, standing to clear the plates. Just like I'm sure you're grateful for all the connections I've helped you make at the charity galas I organize. You know, the ones where you meet half your clients. Bradley's smile faltered for just a second. Oh, those fancy parties? Please. Real business happens in boardrooms, not at your little social events. Rose stood up abruptly. I think I'll help Edith with the dishes. She followed me into the kitchen, closing the door behind us. I swear to God, Edith, if you don't put him in his place soon, I will, she hissed, grabbing a dish towel. Did you hear about what happened at his company last week? I raised an eyebrow. No, what? Word is, his partner Terrell's been making some questionable moves. They lost a major contract because of it. The information settled in my mind like a seed finding fertile soil. Really? Bradley hasn't mentioned anything. Of course not. Doesn't fit his master of the universe narrative, does it? Through the kitchen window, I could see Bradley holding court in our backyard, probably sharing another story about his business genius with Heidi and Andrea. The setting sun cast long shadows across his face, and for a moment, I imagined those shadows were bars of a cage, one he'd built himself with his arrogance. You know what Sierra always says, Rose continued, drying a wine glass with unnecessary vigor. The bigger they are, the harder they fall, I finished, a plan already forming in my mind. My phone buzzed again. This time I checked it. A text from Sierra. Need to talk ASAP. It's about Bradley's company. You won't believe what I just heard. I looked out at Bradley again, still gesturing grandly as he told his story. He caught my eye and gave me that condescending little nod he always did, the one that said, "Thanks for dinner, little housewife." I smiled back, but this time it wasn't my usual peaceful smile. This time it had teeth. Rose, I said, turning to my sister. I think it's time Bradley learned exactly what a housewife can do. She grinned, understanding immediately. Finally, what changed your mind? Let's just say I'm tired of being grateful. I picked up my phone to reply to Sierra. And I think the real world is about to get very interesting for our dear Bradley. Sierra's office always made me feel like I'd stepped into another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern art, and that unmistakable air of power. A far cry from my kitchen where Bradley assumed I spent all my time. You're not going to believe this, Sierra said, gesturing for me to sit. Bradley's company is in serious trouble. I settled into the leather chair across from her desk. Rose mentioned something about a lost contract? Oh, honey, it's way worse than that. Sierra pulled up something on her tablet. Tyrell's been cooking the books for months. The company's hemorrhaging money, and Bradley's too arrogant to see it. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from Andrea. Bradley's acting weird. Came home at 3 a.m. last night. Says everything's fine, but... How bad is it? I asked Sierra. Bad enough that my firm's considering a hostile takeover. She leaned forward. And here's the kicker. Guess who Terrell approached about partnering with him to push Bradley out? You're kidding. Nope. He has no idea we're friends. Thinks he's being clever. Sierra's smile was razor sharp. Want to hear something even better? The Wilson contract Bradley's been bragging about for months? It's hanging by a thread, and the only reason they haven't pulled out completely is because of the charity work you did with Mrs. Wilson last summer. I sat back, processing this information. Does Bradley know this? Please. Bradley probably thinks Mrs. Wilson stuck around because of his charming personality. Sierra rolled her eyes. Speaking of which, her office door burst open, and there stood Bradley himself, his usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. Sierra, I didn't expect... He stopped short when he saw me. Edith, what are you doing here? Just having coffee with my friend, I said innocently. What brings you to this part of town? Bradley's face did something complicated. Friend? You know Sierra? Know her? Sierra laughed. Edith and I go way back. College roommates, actually. But please, have a seat. What can I do for you? Bradley sat down slowly, his eyes darting between us. I wanted to discuss some potential business opportunities. Oh? Sierra's voice was honey-sweet. Would these opportunities have anything to do with Tyrell's recent activities? The color drained from Bradley's face. How did you— Word gets around, Sierra said, especially when someone's trying to shop around a company takeover behind their partner's back. Bradley's phone rang, interrupting whatever excuse he was about to make. He checked it and swore under his breath. Excuse me, I need to take this. He stepped out into the hallway, but we could still hear him through the door. What do you mean they're pulling out? No, call Mrs. Wilson. I don't care if she's not taking our calls. Figure it out. I turned to Sierra. Should we tell him? About what? That you're the reason his company still has any contracts at all? Or that Tyrell's been meeting with our firm's competitors? Sierra shook her head. Let him sweat a little. Bradley came back in, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Sierra, I need to speak with you privately about— Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of Edith, Sierra interrupted. After all, she's on our board of community advisors. I thought Bradley's eyes might pop out of his head. She's what? Oh, didn't you know? Sierra's voice dripped with false surprise. Edith's been instrumental in several of our major community investment decisions. In fact, she's the one who first brought Mrs. Wilson's charitable foundation to our attention. Bradley collapsed into his chair, finally connecting the dots. The Wilson contract. Isn't that funny? I said, standing up. How the real world works sometimes? I gathered my purse, enjoying the way Bradley's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. I should get going. I have a school board meeting to chair. Just another day of not having a real job. As I reached the door, Bradley called out, Edith, wait. I turned back. Yes? He swallowed hard. I might need your help. Might? Sierra prompted. I definitely need your help, he corrected, looking like every word physically pained him. I smiled, thinking of all those condescending comments over the years. Well, isn't that interesting? Tell you what, Bradley, why don't you come over for dinner tomorrow night? We can discuss it then. After all, I have all day to cook, right? I left him there, sitting in Sierra's office, finally realizing that his perfect world was crumbling, and his despised housewife sister-in-law might be his only hope of saving it. You're really going to make him squirm, aren't you? Rose asked, helping me prepare dinner the next evening. The satisfaction in her voice was unmistakable. I'm just going to let karma do its job, I replied, checking the oven. With maybe a little push in the right direction. A little push? Rose snorted. Sis, you've got him cornered like a rat in a trap. The doorbell rang exactly at 7. Bradley was nothing if not punctual when he wanted something. I took my time answering it, smoothing my apron deliberately. He stood there looking distinctly uncomfortable, holding an expensive bottle of wine. Andrea hovered behind him, her usual confident smile nowhere to be seen. Come in, I said warmly. Dinner's almost ready. Edith, Bradley started as soon as they were seated in the living room. About yesterday. Wine? I interrupted, taking the bottle. Let's wait for Heidi. He should be home any minute. And I invited someone else who might be able to help with your situation. Right on cue, the doorbell rang again. Bradley's face went pale when he saw who it was. Mrs. Wilson. I greeted the elegant woman at the door. Thank you so much for coming. Margaret, please, she corrected, embracing me. I wouldn't miss this for the world, especially after that wonderful work you did with our foundation's education initiative. Bradley nearly choked on his wine. Heidi arrived moments later and we all sat down to dinner. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. So, Bradley, Mrs. Wilson said, delicately cutting into her salmon. Edith tells me you've been having some troubles at work. Well, Bradley stammered, shooting me a panicked look. It's nothing we can't handle. Andrea jumped in, ever the loyal wife. Bradley always figures something out. Does he? Mrs. Wilson raised an eyebrow. Because I heard some rather disturbing things about your partner Tyrell's activities. Things that make me question whether we should continue our contract at all. The color drained from Bradley's face. Mrs. Wilson, I can explain. Can you? She set down her fork. Because I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Your office keeps giving me the runaround. The only reason I'm here tonight is because Edith called and assured me you were worth giving a second chance. I could practically see Bradley's worldview shifting as he looked at me with new eyes. I had no idea, he managed. No, you didn't, Mrs. Wilson agreed. You were too busy dismissing people like your sister-in-law to notice who really holds influence in this community. Heidi cleared his throat. Bradley, maybe it's time to listen to what Edith has to say. I took a sip of wine, savoring the moment. I have a proposal for you, Bradley. But first, I need you to understand something. The world doesn't work the way you think it does. Success isn't just about boardroom deals and power moves. It's about relationships, trust, and respect. I'm starting to see that, Bradley muttered. Are you? Rose challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, you're only here because you're desperate. Rose, I warned, but she wasn't finished. No, he needs to hear this. For years, you've treated Edith like she was beneath you. Like being a housewife meant being stupid or worthless. Well, guess what? While you were busy being important, she was building a network that could save your ass. Or destroy it. Andrea gasped. That's a bit harsh. Is it? Mrs. Wilson interrupted. Because from what I've seen, it's exactly what needed to be said. Bradley sat there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. What do you want from me, Edith? I want you to understand your actions have consequences. I said quietly. I want you to recognize that value comes in many forms. And I want you to make this right. Not just with me, but with everyone you've stepped on while climbing your ladder of success. And if I do? Then I'll help you save your company. I'll connect you with the right people, help you rebuild those burned bridges. But it won't be free and it won't be easy. What are your terms? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, reaching for my briefcase. I thought you'd never ask. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Sierra helped me draw these up. I think you'll find them very interesting. As Bradley opened the folder, his eyes widening at its contents, I caught Rose's approving nod. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about reshaping our entire family dynamic, and Bradley was about to learn exactly what a housewife could do when pushed too far. Bradley stared at the documents, his hands trembling slightly. You want a 30% stake in my company? 20% ownership, I corrected, plus a seat on the board and 10% of profits directed to the educational foundation I'm establishing. It's all there in black and white. This is insane, he sputtered. You can't possibly. I can and I will, I interrupted. Or you can try to salvage what's left of your company without my help. I'm sure Tyrell would love that. Mrs. Wilson leaned forward. If I may, Bradley, you're not seeing the bigger picture here. Edith's involvement would restore confidence in your leadership. My foundation would certainly feel more secure about maintaining our contract. And what about Tyrell? Andrea asked, finally finding her voice. He's still a partner. Not for long, I said, pulling another document from my briefcase. Sierra's firm has enough evidence of his financial misconduct to force him out. Unless you'd prefer that evidence find its way to the SEC? Bradley's face went from red to white. You wouldn't. Try me. I met his gaze steadily. The question is, can your ego handle having your housewife sister-in-law as a business partner? Heidi cleared his throat. Brother, I think it's time you listened. Really listened. You knew about this? Bradley turned to him, betrayed. I knew Edith was smart enough to run circles around both of us. Heidi replied. I just never had the courage to say it before. But I'm saying it now. Take the deal. There's one more condition, I added, turning to a specific page. You need to make a public apology. Not just to me, but to every employee you've belittled, every woman you've dismissed, every person you've stepped on. Public? Bradley choked. You want me to humiliate myself? No, Rose cut in. She wants you to humble yourself. There's a difference. Andrea reached for the documents. Let me see those. She read quickly, her expression changing from skepticism to surprise. Bradley, this is actually brilliant. The restructuring plan, the community involvement initiatives, the corporate governance reforms, this could save us. Save you? Bradley scoffed. We don't need. Yes, we do. Andrea slammed her hand on the table. Our house is mortgaged to the hilt. Our savings are almost gone. You've been hiding it from me, but I'm not stupid. We're one bad quarter away from losing everything. The room fell silent. Bradley seemed to deflate before our eyes. How did you know about the mortgage? He whispered to his wife. The same way I know about the missed payments and the credit card debt, Andrea replied. I finally started paying attention instead of just nodding and smiling. Mrs. Wilson stood up. Well, I think I've seen enough. Edith, you have my full support. Bradley, you have until the end of the week to accept these terms, or our contract is terminated, and I suspect others will follow. After she left, Bradley sat there, staring at the documents like they might bite him. You know what the funny thing is? I said, starting to clear the plates. If you had treated me with respect from the beginning, I would have helped you for nothing. But you made me earn every ounce of your disdain. So now you get to earn every ounce of my help. I don't have a choice, do I? He asked quietly. You always have a choice, I replied. Just like I had a choice to stay quiet all these years. But I'm done being quiet, Bradley. The question is, are you done being arrogant? He picked up the pen I'd placed next to the documents. If I sign this, what's to stop you from destroying me anyway? Because unlike you, I said, I understand that true power isn't about destruction. It's about construction. Building things up instead of tearing them down. Sign the papers, Bradley. Let's build something better together. His hand shook as he signed each page. Andrea signed next, then Heidi as a witness. Welcome to the real world, I said, taking the signed documents. Board meeting is Monday at 9. Don't be late. As Bradley and Andrea left, looking shell-shocked, Rose started laughing. What's so funny? I asked. I was just thinking about all those times he said you didn't have a real job. She grinned. Guess you just got hired as his boss. Heidi wrapped his arms around me. I'm sorry I didn't stand up to him sooner. It's okay, I said, patting his hand. Sometimes the long game is the better game. I looked at the signed documents, thinking about Monday's board meeting and the changes to come. Bradley was about to learn that the real world was a lot bigger than his boardroom, and I was going to enjoy every minute of teaching him that lesson. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in Monday morning, Sierra at my side. Bradley sat at the head of the table looking like he'd aged a decade over the weekend. Tyrell's face turned from confusion to shock when he saw me take a seat. What is she doing here? He demanded. Making sure you don't steal anything else, I replied pleasantly, opening my laptop. Sierra, would you like to start? Sierra stood, distributing folders to everyone present. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to discuss some significant changes in leadership and company structure. This is ridiculous, Tyrell interrupted, standing up. Bradley, you can't be serious about letting your housewife's sister-in-law. Sit down, Tyrell, Bradley said quietly. And don't ever speak about Edith that way again. The shock on everyone's faces at Bradley defending me was almost comical. Almost, Sierra continued. We have evidence of substantial financial irregularities under Mr. Tyrrell's management. Would you like to see the documentation, or would you prefer to resign quietly? Tyrrell's face turned purple. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Tyrell's own voice discussing kickbacks with a supplier. The color drained from his face. How did you— Next time you're planning to betray someone, I advised, don't do it at the country club where I organize charity events. The staff there love me. They hear everything. This is illegal, he spluttered. You can't record. Actually, Sierra interrupted, Georgia is a one-party consent state. And besides, you were in a public space. Now, about that resignation. Tyrell grabbed his briefcase and stormed out, but not before Bradley called after him. We'll be in touch about repayment arrangements. The door slammed. I turned to the remaining board members. Now, let's discuss the company's new direction. For the next 2 hours, we laid out plans for financial recovery, corporate restructuring, and community engagement initiatives. Bradley remained unusually quiet, speaking only when directly addressed. And finally, I concluded, the public statement. Bradley stiffened. Edith, please. It's non-negotiable, I said firmly. The press conference is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I've spent 20 years building my reputation, he protested weakly. Andrea, who had been sitting in as a guest, spoke up. And you've spent 20 years tearing down others, including your family. It's time, Bradley. The meeting adjourned, but as everyone filed out, Bradley remained seated, staring at his hands. Why didn't you expose Tyrell sooner? He asked quietly. You could have stopped this months ago. Because you needed to learn something, I replied, gathering my papers. And some lessons only stick when they hurt. I've been awful to you, he admitted. All these years. Yes, you have. I sat back down. But this isn't about revenge, Bradley. It's about growth. You're a brilliant businessman, but you're a terrible brother-in-law. I'm hoping we can fix both. By humiliating me in front of the entire business community? By showing them that true leadership includes admitting mistakes and making amends. I leaned forward. The question is, are you brave enough to do it? He looked at me for a long moment. Did you really hear everything at the country club? No, I smiled. But I knew if I claimed I did, Tyrell would assume the worst and run. People with guilty consciences usually do. Bradley actually laughed. You played him. Like a fiddle, I agreed. Just like he played you all these years. The difference is I did it to save your company, not destroy it. Andrea touched her husband's arm. Bradley, it's time to let go of your pride. Look what it's cost us already. He covered her hand with his. I don't know if I can do this. You can, I said, standing. Because the alternative is losing everything. And despite what you might think, I don't want that. I want my nieces and nephews to be proud of their father. I want my husband to have his brother back. I want this family to heal. And the company? The company will survive. Maybe even thrive once people see its leadership has a conscience and a commitment to change. I headed for the door but paused. The press conference is at 9 tomorrow. Wear the blue tie. It makes you look more approachable. Edith, he called after me. Thank you for not destroying me when you could have. That's what family does, I replied. We help each other grow even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. As I walked out, I heard Andrea say to Bradley, She's right, you know, about everything. Tomorrow would be hard for him, but necessary. Sometimes the path to redemption starts with public humiliation and ends with private growth. Bradley was about to learn that lesson the hard way, but at least he was finally ready to learn. The press conference was set to begin in 30 minutes when I overheard something that made my blood run cold. I was checking the podium setup when Tyrell's voice drifted from around the corner of the building. Everything's in place, he was saying in a low voice. Once Bradley makes his statement, we release the documents. His reputation will be destroyed completely. And the buyers are ready? Another voice asked. They'll swoop in when the stock crashes. We'll get everything for pennies on the dollar. I pulled out my phone and started recording, carefully peering around the corner. Tyrell was standing with two men in expensive suits, passing them what looked like a flash drive. What about his sister-in-law? One of the men asked. We heard she's involved now. Tyrell laughed. The housewife? Please, she's in over her head. Once this hits the news, she'll run back to her kitchen where she belongs. I'd heard enough. Slipping away, I immediately called Sierra. We have a problem, I said, forwarding her the recording. Tyrell's planning something. On it, she replied. Stall Bradley's speech. Give me 15 minutes. I rushed back inside to find Bradley pacing in the green room, looking pale in his blue tie. "We need to delay," I announced. "What?" "No," Bradley protested. "If I don't do this now, I'll lose my nerve." "Trust me," I insisted, just as my phone buzzed with a text from Sierra. "Got it. Terrell fabricated documents, coming with proof." The door burst open and Andrea rushed in. "Bradley, turn on the news, now." We flipped on the TV just in time to see Tyrell being led out of his office in handcuffs, FBI agents carrying boxes of documents behind him. "Breaking news," the reporter was saying. "Federal agents have arrested former executive Tyrell Summers on charges of fraud and corporate espionage." Bradley sank into a chair. "He was going to destroy everything. He was going to try," I corrected, showing him my phone with the recording. "But he made the same mistake you did, underestimating the housewife." Sierra appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. "We got him. He was planning to release fake documents during your speech, crash the company's stock, then have his partners buy it out." "How did you move so fast?" Bradley asked, amazed. "Because unlike Terrell, I actually do have friends at the FBI." Sierra grinned. "And they've been building a case against him for months. Your sister-in-law's recording was just the final piece they needed." "The press is getting restless," Andrea warned, peeking out the door. I turned to Bradley. "This changes your speech. You need to address this too." "I don't know if I can—" "Yes, you can," I interrupted. "Because now you have a chance to show real leadership. Not just apologize for past mistakes, but demonstrate how to handle a crisis with integrity." He stood, straightening his tie. Will you stand with me?" "No," I said firmly. "This is your moment. Show them who you really are, not who you've been pretending to be." Bradley walked to the podium alone, cameras flashing. I watched from the side as he took a deep breath and began. "Good morning. By now you've seen the news about my former partner's arrest. But that's not why I called this press conference. I'm here because I need to apologize. Not just for trusting the wrong person, but for being the wrong person myself." The room fell silent as Bradley continued, his voice growing stronger. "For years, I've measured success by the wrong metrics. I've dismissed and disrespected people who deserved better. I've confused arrogance with leadership. Today, that changes." He went on to outline the company's new direction, emphasizing community involvement and ethical business practices. When he finished, the questions from reporters were surprisingly respectful. "Mr. Bradley, what role will your sister-in-law play in the company's future?" He smiled, looking directly at me. "Edith will be taking a seat on our board where she should have been all along. She's proven that true business acumen isn't about corner offices or fancy titles. It's about understanding people, building relationships, and having the courage to do what's right." As the press conference wrapped up, Heidi appeared beside me, taking my hand. "You did it," he whispered. "No," I replied, watching Bradley handle the reporters with newfound humility. "He did it. He just needed a little push." My phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Watching the news. Is this for real?" I typed back, "It's real. Turns out even dinosaurs can evolve when they have to." Bradley was still talking to reporters, but now he was speaking about family values and the importance of respecting all contributions to success. I smiled, remembering his dismissive comments about just a housewife. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's reformation. 3 months after the press conference, I sat in my new office reviewing quarterly reports when Bradley knocked on my door. "Got a minute?" he asked, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Made it myself. From the break room, not some fancy cafe." "Will wonders never cease?" I teased, accepting the cup. "What's on your mind?" "The Wilson Foundation contract. They're expanding their commitment, doubling their investment." He sat down, looking almost shy. "Thanks to your education initiative proposal." "Our proposal," I corrected. "You did good work on those numbers. Never thought I'd be taking direction from my little brother's wife." He chuckled, then quickly added, "And I mean that as a compliment now." The office phone rang. I put it on speaker. "Yes?" "Mrs. Newton?" My assistant called. Your husband is here with lunch, and Mrs. Wilson is online too about the charity gala. Send Heidi in, I replied, and tell Margaret I'll call her right back. Bradley stood to leave just as Heidi entered with takeout bags. Stay, Heidi insisted. We need to discuss the family dinner anyway. About that, Bradley said, settling back down. Andrea wants to host this time. Says it's time we returned the favor. As long as she's cooking and not you, I laughed. Remember the Christmas disaster of 2019? Hey, how was I supposed to know turkeys needed to thaw? We were still laughing when Sierra burst in, waving a tablet. You need to see this. Now, the headline made my heart skip. Former executive Terrell Summers agrees to testify against international fraud ring. It gets better, Sierra said, scrolling down. He named names, big names, people who've been manipulating markets across 3 continents. Our company? Bradley asked, tensing. Clean, Sierra confirmed. Thanks to Edith's new compliance protocols, which, by the way, the SEC is considering adopting as industry standards. Heidi beamed with pride. That's my wife. Our stock price is going to soar when this hits the wider market. Bradley mused. All those investors who were worried about Terrell's involvement are about to see that we're the ones who helped bring down a major financial crime network. I finished. Not bad for a housewife, huh? Bradley winced. I deserve that, and probably will for a long time. Yes, you will, I agreed. But you're learning. That counts for something. My phone buzzed with a text from Rose. Turn on Channel 7 now. We crowded around my office TV just in time to see Tyrell being led into court, looking haggard in an orange jumpsuit. Hard to believe that's the same man who thought he could outsmart everyone, Heidi commented. Pride comes before a fall, I said. Speaking of which, Bradley, how's the employee mentorship program coming along? Actually, he smiled, I wanted to show you something. He pulled out his phone and played a video of himself speaking to a group of young employees, mostly women. He was answering questions about work-life balance and the importance of recognizing diverse perspectives in business. Who are you and what have you done with my brother? Heidi joked. Let's just say I had an excellent teacher in humility, Bradley replied, nodding at me. Sierra checked her watch. Hate to break up this lovely family moment, but we have the investor call in 10 minutes. Right. I stood, gathering my papers. Bradley, you're leading this one. Me? But you're better at building relationships, yes. But you need to show them you've changed, that you're not the same man who let Tyrell run wild. He straightened his tie nervously. Will you stay on the call? Of course. Family supports family, even when they've been total jerks for 20 years. I'm never living that down, am I? Not a chance, Heidi and I said in unison. As we headed to the conference room, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. Power suit, confident stride, not exactly the image of a traditional housewife. But then again, maybe it was time to redefine what that meant. Oh, Bradley stopped suddenly. Andrea wanted me to ask, for the family dinner, should she make your famous pot roast recipe? I smiled, remembering all those dinners where he'd dismissed my cooking as cute. Tell her I'll come over early and we'll make it together. After all, some skills are worth passing on. Even to those who didn't appreciate them before? Especially to those who didn't appreciate them before. That's how change happens, one pot roast at a time. We entered the conference room, ready to face the investors. Bradley at the head of the table, me at his right hand. A family united, stronger for having been broken and rebuilt. Sometimes the best victories aren't won in boardrooms or courtrooms, but in the quiet moments when people finally see each other for who they really are. The autumn evening at Andrea and Bradley's house felt different from our previous family gatherings. The tension that used to permeate these dinners had been replaced by something warmer, more genuine. Mom, Uncle Bradley's teaching me about stocks, my daughter announced, helping to set the table. Is he now? I raised an eyebrow at Bradley, who was actually wearing an apron as he checked on the pot roast. She's a natural, he said proudly. Asked better questions than half my MBA interns. Andrea emerged from the wine cellar with a bottle. Remember when you used to say women weren't cut out for finance? Remember when I was an idiot? Bradley replied, making us all laugh. The doorbell rang. Rose arrived with Sierra, followed by Mrs. Wilson and her husband. Our family dinners had grown lately, expanding to include the people who'd helped reshape our lives. Something smells amazing, Sierra said, sniffing the air. Bradley and Andrea's first solo attempt at my pot roast, I explained. I only supervised this time. And only had to stop them from burning it twice, Heidi added, earning a playful glare from his brother. As we settled around the table, Bradley cleared his throat. Before we eat, I have an announcement. Everyone fell silent. Bradley wasn't usually one for dinner speeches anymore, not since the press conference that had changed everything. The board voted today, he continued. Edith, they want you to take over as CEO. I nearly dropped my wine glass. What? I nominated you, he said. And it was unanimous. Even the old guard agreed. You're the right person to lead the company forward. But you, I started, will be stepping into a new role as chairman of the board, he finished. Focusing on what I do best, strategy and partnerships. But the day-to-day leadership? That should be you. Told you so. Sierra sang out, grinning. Pay up, Rose. You bet on this? I asked incredulously. Of course we did, Rose laughed. I just thought it would take Bradley another month to swallow his pride. Very funny, Bradley said, but he was smiling. The truth is, Edith, you've been running things anyway. This just makes it official. What about the shareholders? I asked. The press? Already handled, Mrs. Wilson interjected. The major investors are thrilled. Your community initiatives have boosted both profits and public trust. The press release goes out tomorrow morning. I looked at Heidi, who squeezed my hand. You've earned this, he said softly. Besides, Bradley added, someone needs to keep me humble. Might as well be my CEO's sister-in-law. Speech? Andrea called out, raising her glass. I stood, looking around at the faces of my family, both blood and chosen. When this all started, I just wanted Bradley to respect me, to see me as more than just a housewife. But somewhere along the way, it became about more than that. It became about respect for everyone, Bradley finished. About recognizing that true leadership isn't about power or position. It's about lifting others up, I agreed. About building something meaningful together. To the new CEO, Sierra proposed, raising her glass. And to family, Bradley added quietly, who sometimes teach us our hardest and most important lessons. Speaking of lessons, Andrea chimed in, the pot roast is about to burn again. Bradley rushed to the kitchen, cursing good-naturedly. Some skills take more practice than others. As laughter filled the room, I caught Rose's eye. She mouthed silently, You did it, and I had. Not just the career transformation or the family reconciliation, but something bigger. We'd changed the narrative about what success looks like, about who gets to have a seat at the table. Bradley returned with the slightly overdone but still edible pot roast. First official act as CEO, we're hiring a cooking instructor for the executive team. Second official act, I countered, implementing a company-wide policy recognizing the value of all work, whether it's in the boardroom or the break room. Third official act, he suggested, making these family dinners a monthly tradition. That, I said, looking around at our expanded family, was never in question. As we passed dishes around the table, the conversation flowing easily between business strategy and family stories, I realized something profound. Success wasn't about winning or losing, about revenge or redemption. It was about creating spaces where everyone could grow, even those who once tried to keep you small. Hey, Edith, Bradley called from across the table. Remember when I said you didn't have a real job? Hard to forget. Well, he smiled, raising his glass. Here's to proving me wrong. CEO. The title sounded good, but not as good as the genuine respect in his voice when he said my name. Some victories aren't measured in stock prices or board votes. but in the simple acknowledgement of worth. Everyone's worth.